Okay, good morning to all of you. So we are going to continue with our discussion on paper 1B. Three major topics are left. One is caste, religion, ethnicity. Then second is political parties. Third is social movements. अच्छा, इको कर रही है या कैसे आ रही है? नहीं नहीं नहीं, फैन चलेगा, हम वॉइस वो इंक्रीज कर देंगे। सौरभ, आवाज। अभी हाउ इज इट बेटर? एबल टू हियर? समझ में आ रहा है? ठीक है। ओके, वी गोइंग टू स्टार्ट विद दिस। अभी यहाँ पे हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू रिटन टेस्ट अभी तक लिखा है हर्ष? कब लिख रहे हो? लिखना चाहिए। आई विल सी दिस। ठीक है, यू हैव ऑलरेडी रिटन, यू हैड रिटन, यू हैव गॉटन योर कॉपी। ठीक है, आप अभी नहीं लिखा है। कब प्लान कर रहे हो? 1A यू हैव डन 1A। अच्छा, कौन सा बच्चा है अभी? अच्छा, पोलिटिकल थ्योरी। एनीथिंग एल्स, कुछ और? अच्छा ठीक है। तो फर्स्ट थिंग इज अगेन the people who have written the 1A test, including people online. If you've got your copy checked, okay, drop me a text. In this coming week, most probably by the end of Sunday, I will be able to complete my one-on-one with you. ठीक है? तो ये मंडे, मतलब संडे या मंडे तक दिस आई बी कंप्लीटिंग फॉर दोज हु हैव चेक्ड इट। ओके, अच्छा, another thing, the people who are watching this can also note down this number in case you're not able to get through the official number. This is only for the people who have joined the course. अगर आपको faster replies चाहिए, if there is any issue, so you can note my personal number as well. तो कोई doubt होगा तो you can ask me. Okay. Now talking about 1B, three topics are remaining. The topic of caste, religion, ethnicity, political parties, and social movements. There is also another topic which is the bodies, all the constitutional statutory bodies. This, for this I'll be sharing a handout, does not require much explanation. क्योंकि इसमें हमें क्या करना होगा? The mandate of the body, the achievements of the body, the criticism of the body, conclusion of the body. So for each body there will be one page. उसी एक पेज से you can try to cover that. Okay, that is there. Another thing is GS2 में how are you doing with polity and IR? अभी what is the status? If you need any of my help, because yesterday only I concluded the IR wala section of GS. So if you need the handout or any help on this front, on these two sections, let me know. हाँ हाँ ठीक है। तो अगर ऐसा कोई रिक्वेस्ट है तो जस्ट ड्रॉप मी अ मैसेज ऑन दिस नंबर। हाँ, the that is about the, because I'm taking yesterday only I had taken 10 topics of current affairs, very recent current affairs of GS2. So that we can do. Today we'll be completing caste. ठीक है? Political parties maybe not entirely, and even the handout is not fully ready. So I'll see what we can do, or I can merge these two in one class. And in one overall, we will also have a current affairs class of paper 1B. Okay, some topics which I have not been able to take, I will take it up here. Okay, so this is the plan that we will going to follow. How many of you are up to date with the 4 current affairs classes of PSIR? 4 की 4 कर रखी हैं अच्छे से, ठीक है, that is good. Other people watching this online, please make sure you don't have a backlog. Now coming to this section, it's a very rewarding section, and it is not limited only to this. In fact, if I go back, which means political party, the topic has a lot of intersections directly with this, because if you look at Indian democratic politics, there's a huge element of caste, religion, and ethnicity to it. Okay, the moment I see this topic, there are few things that should come to my mind. ठीक है? अच्छा, इस टॉपिक में there is, and in this topic, the last 3 topics, I will additionally be sharing you quotable quotes. Okay, so exact verbatim what Rajni Kotari had said, other people have said, very important. for each subsections caste में इसमें किसको use कर सकते हैं. Some of this will be writing in the class, but उसका एक separate handout most probably by today end you will be getting it. उसका print out निकाल लेंगे because in these three sections generally I've seen students often confusing. Okay, अगर decline of parliament है किसको quote करना है, decline of left है किसको quote करना है. So this handout will be structured in, let's say, caste में sub themes, who to quote and how to quote. Very simple. Hardly 3 or 4 page का document होगा. So this will be supplemented to the document you already have. Okay, and this type of a document you will get for the entire paper 2A and 2B also. 2A में many things we've written in our notes, but last में in a compiled consolidated form भी आपको मिलेगा, so that your revision gets faster. What you have to quote तो उसको you can flip through and you can do accordingly. Okay, so the last 3 units of paper 1B. For paper 2B, I'll plan to release most probably by Sunday, so that वो पहले से print out निकालो and you keep on reading it. Okay, that is how we are going to do. Go ahead. Now, when I'm looking at these three, okay, you have caste, you have religion, you have ethnicity. You have to keep in mind, in India, we are talking about India is a prismatic society. Whose concept was this? Second, sometimes people make a mistake. They only cover caste, they only cover religion, they only cover ethnicity. Which is why if you look at your document carefully, document का जो सबसे आखिरी पेज है उसमें अलग से एक सेक्शन है इंटरसेक्शन का. If the question is mixing any of these identities, even that part is covered. Okay, so I have taken them individually also, and last I have also had an intersection, that how do we go about it. Okay, because sometimes two of these things can work at the same time and not only one, so I need to be prepared on that front. Fine. Now, so when I'm saying India is a prismatic society, so what is the idea? So एक तो ये चीज लगती है यहाँ पे prismatic society. Second thing is coexistence of tradition and modernity is what we see. Okay, modernity and tradition will coexist in between. Okay, now what is the meaning of coexistence here? That people will go for elections. Universal adult franchise is a modern concept, but they will vote based on the caste identity markers. So this is the coexistence of tradition and modernity. These things play a very important role even in the regional political parties, even in the national political parties. So again, that is something that we will again have in our minds. Okay, so one is, in this topic you can easily use prismatic societies. Okay, and this too, both of them highlight to us that we don't have there is no homogeneous identity that we have, right? The meaning of no homogeneous identity is what? I can say fractured, fragmented societies. That is what we have, right? So each of these things have to operate independently. Now, very quickly, I just want to ask you, how would you define caste? You know the difference between these three terms? What is the difference between caste and ethnicity? Purity and pollution. So they can be Varna, Jati system. Ab isme bhi there is Louis Demont, M.N. Srinivas. I'll be quoting them also. So I'm saying, what is caste ultimately? What are the keywords which you associate? You have done this topic hopefully in GS1 society. Caste होता क्या? कैसे define करोगे? Can I say can it be hierarchical? Can it be endogamous? Okay, so we have to use some important keywords to define what is caste. Okay, and I need to know here, whenever I say caste, there are two very important persons. In fact, in your handout also the name is mentioned. One is Louis Dumont and one is M.N. Srinivas. Okay, how caste is defined traditionally in India, that is something I need to know. Second, I need to know how has caste evolved historically in India. Okay, what is ethnicity? When I say there are ethnic movements in India, what examples come to your mind? Can I say Kuki Mighty movement is an ethnic movement, or is it a caste movement? It's an ethnic movement. So what is that based on? Now, ethnic movement where there can be multiple identities. Okay, ethnic movements can be based on language also. They can be based on a region also, right? And they can be based on other identity markers also. If I see ethnic movements in South, they are generally based on language. But if I look at ethnic movements in case of Northeast, they are rooted in tradition and culture, right? So ethnic movements in India, agar aaye, so ethnic movements again remember is not a single one movement that is happening overall. Ethnic movements where there are various points to talk about. Can we say this? So ethnic movements where what is the main difference we see? That in the West, ethnic movements may be different. In India, they are bifurcated along different lines. I hope this part is also clear to us, that how ethnic movements are actually differing. So that is also one thing we will keep in mind. Okay. Now, religion may I'll to tell you what is the impact. Even here, briefly, we'll again cover secularism. UCC we had already covered. याद है? UCC हमने कहाँ cover किया था? DPSP में. Okay. So I'll not be repeating that. In UCC, we'll also see there was a question that was asked that secularism in India is a myth. How to write these kind of questions? That is why one entire page is blank specifically for that part. Okay. So we are going to start with directly with caste. ठीक है, अब देखो यहाँ पे when you define caste, three keywords you should know. One is hierarchy, one is endogamy, one is occupation. So I need to exactly or very basically know how do I define caste. That is the first sense, the first basic idea. Okay. In India, there was of course there is Varn and there is Jati. What is Jati? Varn system we know. Difference between Varn and Jati system. The Varn system actually degraded into Jati system, and then person's social economic mobility could not change. Okay, whatever you were assigned the task or the job based on birth, that could never change. This is how the system got very much criticized, very much fragmented. The system had a lot of graded inequality. When I say graded inequality, it means some sections have been given superior tasks, some are not, and that is directly based on their birth. इसको हम बोलते हैं ascriptive, right? We say sometimes that India, if you recall in the previous class, I mentioned a term, moving from, याद है when we were doing the LPG reforms, welfare. So we are saying India is moving from ascriptive to, although this statement is also not entirely true. Ascriptive होता क्या है? Based on directly birth. And in this class also we'll say many times that we have to move away from different sections. Okay, which means we have to move away from identity politics to identity plus politics. Okay, so ये terms याद रखेंगे, ascriptive, developmental. Now जहाँ पे social foundations लिखा है इसमें there is a space mentioned, just write down scholars. And for the scholars, we will be seeing some important aspects one by one, what exactly can be quoted, etc. Oh, 1 second. सबसे पहले you can write देखो लुई डिमॉन्ट, जो नाम लिखा है ये लुई, LOUIS, लुई डुमॉन्ट. These are very standard definitions that you should be aware of. Louis Dumont, put a dash. Caste as a hierarchy. Caste as a hierarchy based on purity and pollution. Caste. So when you write it in the exam, so you can mention that Louis Dumont defined caste as a hierarchy which is based on the concept of purity and pollution. ब्रैकेट में लिखो his book Homo hierarchus. The caste system and its implications. The name of the book is this, Homo hierarchus. ठीक है. Now in this book सबसे important चीज क्या है? Hierarchy, and second is purity and pollution. Now whenever you will see this, and हमें इतना ही जानना है, बाकी तो sociology optional will do a PhD on this. Second thing I need to know, who was the person who criticized this theory? Now according to this theory, caste is rigid. Okay, it is based on hierarchy. This theory is going to be criticized by M.N. Srinivas, and M.N. Srinivas will say caste is something which is very dynamic in nature. आपने सुना है terms Sanskritization, etc. All of that are very closely associated with M.N. Srinivas. So we've written Homo hierarchus, book है Louis Dumont. Second लिखो M.N. Srinivas. M.N. Srinivas challenged. M.N. Srinivas challenged the view that caste is completely rigid. He challenged the view that caste is completely rigid. Full stop लिखो. Through Sanskritization, again this is something you use in GS also. Through Sanskritization, lower caste seek upward mobility. Through Sanskritization, lower caste seek upward mobility by adopting practices of higher caste. By adapting the practices of higher caste. So first thing, he criticized the view of Louis Dumont. According to him, caste is not rigid, caste is dynamic in nature. And for that, he gives a concept that is known as Sanskritization. Again, he will give a concept almost everybody in the class will be aware of, the concept of dominant caste. Okay. So first concept we've written Sanskritization. Second, likho his idea of inverted commas dominant castes. And when I say his, it is M.N. Srinivas. His idea of dominant caste shows how numerical strength from a land ownership, numerical strength, land ownership, from education and political power, can make a caste influential. It can make a caste influential नेक्स्ट जो यहाँ पे लिखा है ग्रेडेड इनइक्वालिटी, ब्रैकेट में लिखेंगे बी आर अम्बेडकर, बी आर अम्बेडकर। एनी आइडिया व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ, सॉरी, इनइक्वालिटी? चलो लिख लो, जस्ट राइट वन लाइन फॉर ग्रेडेड इनइक्वालिटी। देखो, कास्ट प्रिवेंट्स फ्रेटर्निटी, caste prevents fraternity and fragments society. Caste prevents fraternity and fragments society. So graded means it creates different levels. Think of Plato's myth of metals. Okay, there's a gradation that is there, and gradation में ही आपने inequality embed कर दी. And if there is inequality, it will not lead to feeling of oneness, fraternity, cohesiveness. In fact, for his theory of graded inequality, he was also labeled as anti-national. Okay. So abhi what we have seen, the very basic of caste. One is Louis Dumont, second is M.N. Srinivas, third is Dr. Ambedkar. There are other people, Christopher Jeffrelot, etc., etc., Rajni Kothari. वो हम अगले पेज पे करेंगे when we have how caste interacts with democracy. It leads to positives also, it leads to negatives also. So I need to know both, right? First part is this. Second part, when we have a look at, yeah, basic historical evolution, right? Colonial times there was a caste census. We know there was a separate electorate, and we also know there was a communal award. There was a Pune Pact, we are aware of. Okay, constitutional abolition of untouchability. What, which article? देखो, देखो ब्रैकेट में आर्टिकल 17, आर्टिकल 17 ठीक है। Next, Nehruvian attempt to suppress caste from formal political discourse. But later on, abhi we will see that many regional parties will come based on the caste basis. ठीक है। अब ये इंपॉर्टेंट है, यहां लिखा है ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन एंड द राइज ऑफ लैंड ओनिंग इंटरमीडियरी कास्ट। ठीक है। हाउ मेनी ऑफ रिकॉल ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन में विच टर्म हैड वी सीन? किसने दिया था? तो यहीं पे लिखो, ऐड करो। दैट इज व्हाई द टॉपिक्स विल हैव अ लॉट ऑफ कंटिन्यूटी। Okay, next there's a mention of Mandal Commission, 27% reservation, and there's a mention of rise of parties such as SP, RJD, BSP. In fact, we will see even more parties that are coming up on the fray of how people can be organized. That is the matter. Okay. Now, in this historical evolution, I will tell you a couple of points to write. You have to be aware about it. तो देखो, निकोलस, इसी में जहां पे स्पेस है, देखो निकोलस डर्क्स in basically he'll also talk about the colonial aspect. Nicholas Dirks in the Caste of Mind argued that caste existed before colonialism. Caste existed before colonialism, but British census, comma, classification and administrative practices, British classification, census and administrative practices made it more rigid, uniform and central to rigid, uniform, and central to Indian social identity. Central to Indian social identity. Now, this is a work you have seen questions in the past. In fact, last year there were almost two questions on this theme. One question on census to 2027 delimitation and one question was on caste census. तो आप इससे link कर सकते हो that the older census that have happened because of the British, and we're not saying that the caste is a feature because of colonialism. It was already there, but it is an administrative practice which have made it a very strong feature, especially. So this is a point you can always highlight. So that is one aspect we can talk and quote about. ठीक है? Okay. Second thing that we will also write इसी में next लिखो. Write Christophe Jeffrelot. Second point to write here. Christophe Jeffrelot. अब इसमें I am commenting only on this aspect. Okay. Christophe Jeffrelot describes post-Mandal rise of OBCs. Christophe Jeffrelot describes post-Mandal describes the post-Mandal rise of OBCs as inverted commas silent revolution, as a silent revolution in Indian politics. Describes this as a silent revolution in Indian politics. ठीक है? So till now we'll go and again no scholar dumping. जो चीज आप यूज कर सकते हो वो ही लिखेंगे. स्टार्ट किससे किया? एम एस श्रीनिवास एंड लुई डुमो. द डिबेट ऑल्सो यू अंडरस्टैंड. Graded inequality by Dr. Ambedkar. These are the basics of caste that you should know. Second is the caste in mind, that is the colonial aspect of caste. Who had talked about it? Nicholas Duck. ठीक है? And second we have seen is Christophe Jeffrelot, who has commented on India's silent revolution. ठीक है? अभी politics में I will often use these two terms. I will talk about a democratic upsurge and I'll talk about a silent revolution. What is silent revolution? The post-Mandal, right? The rise of OBC's post-Mandal commission. So that is something that you can always often quote. In fact, इतना popular quote है. Many people directly write the India's silent revolution ऐसा करके, right? So directly you can use the keyword and write that. So that part is one. Okay. Now, what we can talk about? Flip your page. So we've seen historical evolution, some basic facts you know, some basic points we've added here. अब आते हैं इस पे सबसे important, the relationship of caste and politics. Some points we'll write here. We will also link to caste and democracy, the positives of it, and we'll also see caste and democracy, the negatives of it. Then we go to that caste politics has two things. It has regional social structure also, and it also has electoral competition. इसमें you need to know a lot of factual perspective, which means state wise examples आने चाहिए, so as to again properly write the arguments. And इसके बाद the only remaining aspect that is left is the census part and maybe some miscellaneous part. तो सबसे important जो case है वो है ये caste politics relationship. In this the most authoritative voice is रजनी कोठारी. Okay, तो यहाँ सबसे पहले लाइन लिखेंगे रजनी कोठारी और ब्रैकेट में लिखो पोलिटिसाइजेशन ऑफ कास्ट. रजनी कोठारी, politicization of caste. Now right, देखो कोठारी argued that Democracy does not simply eliminate caste. Democracy simply does not eliminate caste. Instead, it politicizes. Instead, it politicizes and transforms it. Instead, it politicizes and transforms it. Caste groups enter politics. Caste groups enter politics to seek representation. Caste groups enter politics to seek representation, comma, power and resources. Representation, power and resources, while political competition creates while political competition creates new caste alliances and identities. Political competition creates new caste alliances and identities. Right? This is one major basic aspect we should be aware of. Pehli cheez. Okay. Now, when I'm looking at caste and politics relationship, from Rajni Kotari's quote, you also know what is happening. A बहुत famous quote भी है that Indians don't cast their vote, they basically vote their caste. That is talking about the electoral aspect, how Indians or how the people vote. That is one voter behavior. Second, this also tells you that in India, identity markers like caste have a very important role to play. Okay, and when I look at the caste and politics relationship, how do you see the relationship? Is it one way or is it two way? If you're saying two way, prove it to me. How is it two way relationship? Correct, बिल्कुल सही. अब how would you explain this? Explain करो. Point correct है, but how would you expand on it? Manifesto, reservation, that is ठीक है. Okay, then subdivision. Okay, anything else? ठीक है, ठीक है. Then ठीक है, ठीक है. देखो इसको कैसे लिखना है, I'll tell you. Many times people get confused in these two terms. आपने सुना है ना, politicization of caste and casteization of politics. Sometimes you're able to understand one, but you're not able to understand the other. So what we have done, इसमें इतना space क्यों है, you'll understand. First is Rajni Kotari, we have mentioned what he says. अब हम दो चीजें लिखने वाले हैं. In this same, we will write, first we will write how caste influences politics. I'm only going to give you keywords. You are going to easily be able to expand on it. लिखो caste influences politics. अगर ये keywords मुझे याद हो गए, तो you will be able to write a very good answer. Caste influences politics, put a dash, and with comma you will be separating. पहला voting, voting, comma, candidate selection, candidate selection, comma, ticket distribution, ticket distribution. These are points आप बन सकते हैं इसमें. Voting, selection of candidates. ठीक है. Candidate selection also means when somebody is actually voting for it. Second is when party is distributing tickets. Third one was ticket distribution, comma, caste based party, caste based parties and reservation demands. Caste based parties and reservation demands. Next लिखो politics influencing caste. देखो इसमें political alliances के भी इन सबके एग्जांपल I'll be giving you. Political alliances, comma, अब this is a term sometimes used. देखो secularization of caste, secularization of caste and and social mobility. Social mobility. Okay. For this part, you also need to be aware of certain examples. Okay. कुछ example पता हो and more examples we'll write in the remaining section. Can you give me any examples of what we've discussed? देखो reservation बहुत simple है. You can give me examples like what is that known as? You've seen the Kham and Asgar that you have seen. Okay. For this part, just write examples. 2 or 3 examples we'll write. First example, Kham and Asgar coalitions. Second, देखो Jat, Maratha, Patidar, reservation movements. It is the intersection of two. अभी we will be writing all the example here. जैसे यहाँ पे क्या होगा? खाम में how, what is the meaning of खाम? KHAM. ये alliances हैं, for example, made about, for example, in UP you will see the consolidation of the Yadavs and the Muslims together. So there are some alliances that come together. वैसे ही वो नाम है, अभी I'll make you write them. इसके नीचे जो space है ना, जहाँ पे after the table, उसमें ये सारे examples लिखेंगे. So one is Kham, Asgar. Second one, Jat, Maratha, Patidar, reservations, your movement. And third लिखो OBC consolidation. OBC consolidation. ठीक है. अब ये जो पार्ट है, नाउ एक बार नीचे आ जाओ. आई टॉक अबाउट दिस लेटर. यहाँ पे लिखा है कास्ट पॉलिटिक्स सोशल स्ट्रक्चर. दिस यू विल डिवाइड इन 2 पार्ट्स. ओके, so that you have enough space to write. For Kham, right? Because we can just break down each term and I'll tell you who made it popular. Kham में लिखो क्षत्रिय, हरिजन, आदिवासी, मुस्लिम. Kham is क्षत्रिय, हरिजन, आदिवासी, मुस्लिम. And you tell me what is the benefit of having a Kham alliance? Simple चीज है. It is simple case of arithmetics, and this actually in 1970s proved very beneficial for Congress for consolidation of votes. Okay, अगर ये देखूं मैं, A is Ahir, Jat, Gujjar. So this also in fact this was made popular by Chaudhary Charan Singh. Okay, so Kham में भी आपने नाम लिख लिया, and Kham में just write in one line. देखो Kham secured a massive arithmetic majority. Massive arithmetic majority for the Congress party. So basically simply meaning that this was very much useful by The idea was consolidation of votes, the people coming together overall. Second लिखो, the Asgar, Ahir, Jat, Gujjar and Rajput. Ahir, Jat, Gujjar, Rajput. Okay, pioneered by Chaudhry Charan Singh to bring together land owning and agrarian castes, to bring together land owning and agrarian castes. Okay, more examples we'll see as I move below. So till now what I have seen, if I say the relationship of caste and politics, who have we quoted? Rajni Kothari. Second, we have seen how caste impacts politics and how politics impact caste. Again, when you write about reservations, etc., you can in here also mention about Christophe Jeffrelot and the silent revolution post the Mandal. So this is one aspect. Now, देखो caste and politics में relationship we have seen. Same thing, how is caste and democracy? Of course, caste and democracy is not separate from caste and politics. Here there are some positives, right? So positives में you first try to think what will be the positive of caste and democracy. अब आप सोचो ना, if there is a silent revolution, it means if there is caste consolidation coming in, more people can vote in elections. There will be a broadening of electoral base also. Again, more voices of marginalized can be heard and reached. ये सारे positives होंगे. तो positives में लिखो पहला. Just keywords we will be writing. First लिखो inclusion of Dalits and OBCs. Inclusion of Dalits and OBCs. In fact, in the bracket again, remember Christophe Jeffrelot, silent revolution can always be linked. Christophe Jeffrelot, silent revolution. Second bullet लिखो democratization of representation. What is the meaning of it? A major chunk of population which was not represented will now properly be represented. Yes or no? Right? Democratization of representation. Next लिखो keyword assertion through electoral politics. Assertion through electoral politics. इसमें लिखो ब्रैकेट में रजनी कोठारी, सेम politicization of caste and casteization of politics. Next लिखो योगेंद्र यादव. योगेंद्र यादव sees the caste based mobilization. Yogendra Yadav sees the caste based mobilization as a part of India's democratic upsurge. As a part of India's democratic upsurge, where marginal groups become active claimants of power, where the marginal groups become active claimants of power. Last लिखो social justice and empowerment. Social justice and empowerment. So here write reservation reservation and welfare provisions, reservation and welfare provisions have promoted mobility, they have promoted mobility and self-respect, mobility and self-respect among the disadvantaged, among the disadvantaged. ओके okay? इसी में एक लाइन लिख लेंगे, मार्क, लास्ट पॉइंट इन दिस सेक्शन, मार्क गैलेंटर, GALANTER, मार्क गैलेंटर, and write reservation is a form of compensatory discrimination. Reservation is a form of compensatory discrimination aimed at correcting, aimed at correcting historical wrongs. Aimed at correcting historical wrongs. So the positives we have seen, right? Very quickly have a look at positives. We have seen about, which scholars have you quoted? Jeffrelot, right? Right. So there are 4 that we have quoted almost. So one is, and you will, the more you remember them. Now Christopher Jeffrelot mind tells you silent revolution, Rajni Kotari, politicization of caste. Third one was Yogendra Yadav, simple kya hai? Democratic upsurge. Okay. And the fourth one, Mark Guarantor, will comment on the reservation as a compensatory discrimination. Okay. These are the 4 points. Then come to criticism. One very obvious criticism will be Ambedkar. So first देखो, पहला issue है social fragmentation. Social fragmentation can intensify intergroup hostility. Full stop लिखो, Ambedkar warned it can intensify intergroup hostility. Full stop. Ambedkar warned that caste is, inverted commas, anti-national, because caste will not lead to fraternity. Warned that caste is anti-national because it creates graded inequality. Caste is anti-national because it creates graded inequality. Second, right? Vote bank politics. Vote bank politics. Of this, you know what is the term vote bank politics? इस पे लिखो Paul Brass. Paul Brass highlights how, अब ये जो टर्म है वोट बैंक पॉलिटिक्स, ये तीनों में कॉमन है, कास्ट में भी, रिलीजन एंड एथनिसिटी. And Paul Brass, or his quote simply will tell you that the bases are used by elites. Okay, so religion is again sometimes used by elites, caste is used by elites, ethnicity is used by elites. So Paul Brass highlights how elites strategically mobilize, elites strategically mobilize social identities for political competition. For political, they mobilize social identities for political competition. Okay. Next, so one is vote bank. Third, लिखो clientelism. What is the meaning of it? For example, if benefits are to be distributed, okay, everybody would expect the benefits should be universally distributed, transparently distributed, but kabhi kabha there is patronage politics going on. A certain section is only given the benefit. So instead of a universal transparent approach, there is a more identity based approach. So clientelism is just right. So benefits may be distributed through caste networks rather than transparent frameworks. Caste networks rather than transparent frameworks. Next, देखो criticism, diversion from development. Diversion from development. You understand this point? हो सकता है the political discussion and debate, apart from, instead of jobs, instead of employment, let's say instead of education and health, it is all about caste representation. But जो ये point हमने लिखा है इस पे स्टार मार्क लगाओ. This criticism is only fine to an extent, but it is not entirely true. Why? Because we should not see caste and development as two mutually exclusive things. In fact, many a times the demand for their inclusion and representation also improves the development. ठीक है, तो स्टार मार्क लगा के नीचे लिखो एक लाइन इसी में. देखो, caste and development are not always opposites. Caste and development are not always opposites. ठीक है, I hope you understand this part. So we've seen the interaction between these two, caste, democracy and criticism. Now come to this. अभी तक इसमें हमने क्या लिखे examples? Now, when I'm seeing caste politics, ये term बहुत use होता है, caste politics, caste politics. How will you use it in your answer? Right? सिर्फ एक दो scholar के नाम से भी नहीं होगा. So you need some precise points in this. Okay? Again, in these kind of questions, specificity, preciseness is going to be rewarded. अगर आप सिर्फ बैठ के अगर if we make the whole jalebi, right, of if the question is on caste politics और हम सिर्फ caste को explain कर रहे हैं, but if you are not giving concrete points in दोनों dimension पे होने चाहिए. What is politics? Politics is always about competition, who can canvass more votes, right? But caste politics may bring in the regional aspect, and different regions have seen different parties emerging who are based on some caste lines. That assertion is there. So in this type of question, I should be able to give examples. हाँ, उसके ऊपर I can talk about Christopher Jeffrelot, उसके ऊपर I can talk about Yogendra Yadav or Rajni Kothari and these people. But without that base, okay, the answer will be lacking in substantiation. This is an important point. In general, I will be highlighting about. Okay. So caste politics may, apart from the two examples, we'll be writing some more examples. One by one, we'll be writing them. So I'll almost go with certain state-based approach with some examples in this case. So पहला example, one by one, let's start with UP. Put a dash, लिखो Dalit OBC assertion. Dalit OBC assertion, comma SP and BSP. Dalit OBC assertion, SP and BSP. Second, Bihar. backward class mobilization, backward class mobilization, comma RJD, RJD and social justice politics, RJD and social justice politics. So UP, we've seen Bihar, come to Haryana and West UP. What this will be? The Jat politics. So right, Haryana and West UP, put dash, Jat politics. Next, come to Gujarat. Gujarat mein the example is Kham, Kham, Kham and Patidar mobilization. In the previous, if you recall also, Patidar protests were also news some time back. Okay. So Kham and Pati. What is Kham? लिखा है हमने Kshatriya, Harijan, Adivasi Muslim, right? So Kham mobilization, and we've also seen that it was very helpful for the Congress to secure a victory in the 1970s. Okay, so that is one example. So this is a part. If I also give you examples in the southern part of India, okay, so you also know, for example, if I say Tamil Nadu, so there is Dravidian movement. So there was which parties? DMK, AIDMK. What is the recent new party that has won the election? ठीक है, तो अभी लिखो तमिलनाडु, right? Justice Party, non-Brahmin movement, Justice Party, non-Brahmin movement, and Dravidian mobilization. Dravidian mobilization. Next, Karnataka. Karnataka में right, Lingayat and Vokaligga, Lingayat and Vokaligga. And last लिखो आंध्रा, आंध्रा / तमिलनाडु. यहाँ पे राइट रेड्डी कम्मा, KAMMA, रेड्डी कम्मा, कापू, KAPU, and regional party competition. Reddy, Kamma, KAMMA, comma, Kapu, KAPU, and regional. ठीक है? I've asked you to demarcate it in two parts. This is the factual basis जो हमें लिखना ही पड़ेगा. ठीक है? Now, sometimes again your question in your mind is which theories can be added here? Theory सोचो और लिखो कहीं पे section theories. ठीक है? इसमें I'll tell you both things. What is happening here? What is not? Okay? So theories सबसे पहले लिखो, very पहले लिखो dominant caste thesis by MN Srinivas. पहला लिखो dominant caste thesis by MN Srinivas. Second, write Rudolph and Rudolph. What will they say? Right? So Rudolph and Rudolph में लिखो Bullock capitalist. Third लिखो Christophe Jeffrelot, silent revolution. Fourth, so whenever I say theory, both theory keywords both can work. And fourth one is Yogendra Yadav, democratic upsurge. Fifth, Rajni Kothari. अब यूज कैसे करना है? यूज योर आर्ग्यूमेंट्स एंड देन सब्सटैंशिएट वाया स्कॉलर. रजनी कोठारी में अगेन इलेक्टोरल कंपटीशन कहीं भी हो रहा है, rise of alliance कहीं हो रहा है. You can tell this can be explained through casteization of politics as seen in the emergence of, let's say, Kham coalition, Ajgar coalition. तो मुझे theories अगर नहीं याद है, I will not be able to write a good answer. Same if I only know the facts, if I don't add theories, I need to mix both. And sometimes we make this mistake. ठीक है? तो अभी regional structure समझ में आ रहा है? Different parts of India, we've seen examples of coalitions, caste-based emerging. Second is some theories that we can talk about. Okay? अगर यहाँ पे space खत्म हो गया है, to come to the remaining space here, some few points also please write. और heading लिखोगे, लिखो, or write it here only. This is better. You have space. देखो, analysis of caste politics. Some other points we'll write here. Analysis of caste politics. सबसे पहला देखो, first point already you know. देखो, dominant caste thesis. First point is dominant caste thesis. Dash Jats in Haryana and West UP. Jats in Haryana, West UP, comma. Marathas in Maharashtra. The Marathas in Maharashtra. Reddys and Kamas in Andhra. Then next recall. So first one was dominant caste, second right. State specific. State specific. अब इसमें लिखो बुलेट पॉइंट्स. पहला लिखो ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन. ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन strengthened agrarian caste in North India. Next, right, commercial agriculture empowered patidars in Gujarat. Next, urbanization and education. Urbanization and education created new Dalit and OBC middle classes. New Dalits and OBC middle classes. So this point was state specific. Next point likho, linguistic reorganization. In fact, this also impacts your caste politics. Linguistic reorganization. इसमें just write the examples. देखो, Dravidian parties in Tamil Nadu. Dravidian parties in Tamil Nadu. Next, you can write SP, BSP in UP. SP, BSP in UP. इसमें लिखो, इसी एग्जांपल में लिखो. इनफैक्ट आई शुड हैव मेड द हेडिंग एज, हेडिंग को चेंज करो, लिंग्विस्टिक रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन प्लस रीजनल पार्टीज. यू कैन क्लब बोथ. linguistic reorganization plus regional parties. Okay, so linguistic reorganization we are seeing more in Andhra, in Tamil Nadu, and we're also seeing regional parties which can be region specific, which will consolidate the votes of castes, but it can also be done on the language basis also. Language basis we are seeing that happening in South. On purely caste basis, it is purely happening in the case of UP and other areas. Okay, that is the just a clarification. Okay. नेक्स्ट देखो इंपॉर्टेंट कीवर्ड फेडरलाइजेशन, देखो नेक्स्ट कीवर्ड फेडरलाइजेशन ऑफ कास्ट डिमांड्स, फेडरलाइजेशन ऑफ कास्ट डिमांड्स। पहला देखो एजिटेशंस बाय जाट मराठा पाटीदार्स, एजिटेशन बाय जाट मराठा पाटीदार्स। सेकंड लिखो रिजर्वेशन एंड सब कैटेगराइजेशन, रिजर्वेशन एंड सब कैटेगराइजेशन। नेक्स्ट स्टेट स्पेसिफिक कोटाज, ये सारे न्यू ट्रेंड्स हैं, इसको व्हाट आई एम सेइंग फेडरलाइजेशन ऑफ कास्ट डिमांड्स। स्टेट स्पेसिफिक कोटाज, इंक्लूजन इन ओबीसी लिस्ट, वो भी है। एंड अनदर थिंग इज इवन नेशनल पार्टीज आर आल्सो देयर बिकॉज दे वांट टू, आपने सुना होगा एक फिनोमेनन कैच ऑल पार्टीज, अब दे वांट टू कंसोलिडेट ऑन एवरी बेसिस, some element will be caste based, some will be welfare based, so हाँ, या ये पॉइंट बन सकता है। और पॉइंट है ना फेडरलाइजेशन ऑफ कास्ट डिमांड्स, एवरी स्टेट विल नाउ वांट इट, सो इन दैट सेंस इसलिए बोल सकते हैं कास्ट सिस्टम इज गेटिंग मोर एंट्रेंच्ड। ओके, सो दैट कैन बी देयर। सेकुलराइजेशन मींस फर्स्ट पहले क्या होता था कास्ट के केसेस में, दैट it was linked to purity, pollution and other aspects, fine. Secularization means it is now linked to more and more electoral competition, consolidation के cases में, right? So it is now becoming more of a tool, right? तो और जितने markers थे, when you look at religion and secularism, okay, secularism, what does the state does not have a specific religion, state will respect all the religions equally, सर्व धर्म संभव। तो सेकुलराइजेशन में एटलीस्ट द डिविजिव पार्ट हम कोशिश करते हैं उसको कम करें, कंसोलिडेशन बढ़ाएं, बट इसका नेगेटिव साइड भी है बिकॉज यू सी मोर स्टेट डिमांड्स कमिंग इन, ठीक है। सो इट इन दैट सेंस कास्ट विल ऑलवेज बी अ पार्ट ऑफ इंडियन पॉलिटिक्स। इनफैक्ट आई थिंक समटाइम बैक इन GS1 एक क्वेश्चन आया था आपको कि हैज द कास्ट लॉस्ट इट्स रेलेवेंस इन इंडियन सोसाइटी, ऐसे सवालों में क्या सोचोगे, हैज इट लॉस्ट? यू हैव टू आर्ग्यू बोथ द वेज, okay. One is, at least in some urban metropolitan areas, it may seem like it, and you will give examples for that. However, the counter will be that it has also formed new forms. Okay? Sometimes when you look at rap music, almost most of the rappers will flaunt their caste, especially let's say Punjabi rappers, Haryanvi rappers. Secondly, अगर आप cars देखते हो, in cars, even in the back of cars, okay, proudly people will mention that. So there are different ways of caste assertion that is starting. Okay. So that all is also a point we can talk about. So these are some examples जो अभी हमने देखे हैं। अब इसे लास्ट लिखो, लास्ट लिखो, देखो इलेक्टोरल एग्रीगेशन, लास्ट पॉइंट इज इलेक्टोरल एग्रीगेशन। लिखो no major caste is usually large enough, no major caste is usually large enough to win power alone, to win power alone, and therefore parties have broad coalitions, parties have broad coalitions. Example, Ham, Ajgar, Ham, Ajgar, comma, Dalit OBC, comma, upper caste OBC combinations, and last में देखो and rainbow coalitions. Rainbow means everybody is together. तो इसमें क्या है, caste in that sense is getting secularized. ठीक है, Dalit OBC, upper caste OBC, okay, all these alliances we can talk about. Fine. So what we see here overall is the transformation that caste has shown to us. Okay. Now, if you recall our discussion on the fundamental rights, so reservation and all of that part we've covered in that aspect only. Yaad hai? Right? In that we've also seen subcategorization, etc., etc. So that remaining part you will cover from that section only. Now let's have a look at the caste census part and then maybe 1 or 2 points, and after that we move to the next. Okay, so 1 second, we were here. Now if you look at a caste census, सबसे पहला क्या है, why is it needed? Just underline the keywords. पहली चीज है, it is outdated. If the data is inadequate, that is not very helpful. Even Supreme Court has said that reservation or any demand should always be based on the most recent data. Okay, so पहली चीज है outdated. Second, of course, you want evidence based affirmative action, right? You want to identify inequalities within a very broad category of OBCs, right? Even there are claims of sub-categorization. OBC sub-categorization, which commission? G. Rohini Commission. Sub-categorization of SCs and ST, which court judgment? Class में करा है हमने. Davinder Singh versus State of Punjab, 2024. So you'll remember both. Political recognition of smaller and most backward communities. We can talk about it. Okay. Better targeting. So why is this demanded? We should be aware of. Okay. Remember G. Rohini Commission and the Davinder Singh versus State of Punjab. How will this address the aspirations? Underline, from recognition into measurable data. बहुत famous एक principle है in management, Peter Drucker. Whatever gets measured gets done. Okay. Again, you want to have evidence-based representations. So evidence-based affirmative action, evidence-based representations, good keywords for us. Underline, reveal intra-category inequalities. So in the entire one section of OBCs, what are the inequalities that are present in that? इनकी bargaining power को improve कर सकता है. It can improve distributive justice. And lastly, can give democratic visibility to the excluded communities. ठीक है. अब the difficult part is the limitation and risks. Okay. And why is it difficult? Because सबसे पहली चीज, the moment you do a census, data does not do anything by itself. It depends on political will. सबसे important है. Okay. तो यहाँ पे लिखो, depends on political will. Census data does not automatically create a legal right. It depends on the political will. So that is an important aspect. Another second is an administrative issue, very difficult to classify thousands of jatis, subcastes, synonyms, right? फिर है possibility of competitive backwardness. याद आ रहा है हमें? What is competitive backwardness? यहाँ पे लिखो dash करके inverted commas, race towards the bottom. Race towards the bottom. प्रताप भानु मेहता. Okay. Politicization of enumeration हो सकता है. इसी में लिखो एक आंद्रे बेते. Must have heard the name. Spelling is this, pronunciation is different. Andre Bete. Right? Because even though ideologically caste is weakening, even though ideologically caste is weakening, atrocities against Dalits continues to rise. Atrocities against Dalits continues to rise. Okay, so this is one aspect you will remember. See the remaining issues also. Numerical caste block, conflict हो सकता है, social justice and constitutional aspirations of a society. Okay. Now two things are there. One, again I'm repeating, reservation aspect we've already covered with fundamental rights. And second, इस टॉपिक का एक और इंटरसेक्शन है जो आखिरी पेज पे आएगा. Caste, religion, caste, region. So intersection is also one thing. So when I come to intersection, then we'll do that. Okay. अब एक बार ये देखो, just see this table. Caste का contribution क्या है democracy में? Representation of historically excluded groups. Two people come to my mind. Yogendra Yadav, democratic upsurge. Second, Christopher Jefferlot's silent revolution. Democratic danger है, clientelism का, social fragmentation. Who do I recall? Graded inequality, Ambedkar. याद आ रहा है? ठीक है. How do you accommodate this caste? तो reservation है, parties है, electoral competition. With electoral competition, we saw so many different mechanisms, different states, different formulations. I hope you'll be able to write that and remember that. Okay. So this is one important aspect that we have seen. Come to the next page. Now next is the caste census से लेकर issues and many parts we've already had a look at. Come to religion in Indian politics. Okay. Some basic part are already mentioned here as a part of static that you should be aware of. Of course, we'll also see the democratic impact. We'll see the different models of secularism, etc. So I'll see this both from a constitutional angle as well as Indian politics angle. Okay. Now, religion shapes identity, mobilization, partyology, public policy. India case में, you know, religion is secularism is not exclusion or neither the state identifies. हमारे यहाँ क्या case है? What do we talk about? It's a principal distance model that we have. Okay, so that is one basic part. Historical trajectory. Okay, I'm giving you 30 seconds. Please quickly go through this because this is some basic background knowledge you are expected to write. There have been in the past 20 markers on religion also. So basic content नहीं होगा तो लिखना मुश्किल होगा, right? Colonial rule, national movement. Please have a look at all of this. So colonial rule, of course, we know Morley Minto reforms. Okay, Government of India Act 1919, even later 35, divide and rule. Gandhi using terms like Ram Rajya. In fact, if you see the criticism of Gandhi is also one of this same criticism of Aurobindo Ghosh, who bring a lot of religious elements. Okay. अब ये important है, Nehruvian secularism will talk about nationalism and temper. It will not bring in a religious aspect. But ये important है अपने लिए since 1980s. Shah Bano case. What happened in Shah Bano case? देखो 1985 का केस है and again to circumvent that 1986 में the then government did not have enough political power to implement the decision. Okay, so Shah Bano case is about maintenance Shaira Bano case, which is a more recent case, it is about the talaq e biddat, the practice of saying talaq 3 times, and it said this practice is unconstitutional and this practice is not a ERP, essential religious practice, ये नहीं है, ठीक है. राम जन्मभूमि, हिंदुत्व, बाबरी मस्जिद डिमोलिशन, यूसीसी, ये सब कुछ, तो इसमें स्टार मार्क लगाएंगे दिस पार्ट को. UCC we have already done. Okay. Now, how does religion operate in the political sphere? What do we see? बहुत चीजें हैं. Same vote, candidate selection, just like caste was doing it, religion is also doing it. Party ideology, आपने सुना होगा, hard हिंदुत्व, soft हिंदुत्व, right? So soft posturing, religious nationalism, minority protection, etc. We've seen symbols and leadership. Okay. So again, not earlier parties like AAP did not have this kind of image, but in the recent times, even they will again categorically show their symbol visits. Even Congress would do so. Okay. So that tells you how religion operates in a very competitive electoral landscape in India. Okay. Ritual, slogan, imagery, vote bank politics, patronage, symbolic recognition, slogans, etc. Right? Policy is also very important. Your personal laws, conversion, minority. So politically, if you have a look at, religion has many things to talk about. Yes. Now, when I say democratic impact, just like we have done it for caste में impact क्या था? Positive as well as negative. So when I'm saying the democratic impact of religion, I can again further divide it into positive and even negative, and we will have some scholars justifying these aspects. Positive में लिख सकते हैं, पहला लिखो, and again possibly try to either bifurcate your page. Okay, in the first part of your page, अगर अपना पेज ऐसा है तो ये करेंगे हम positive 3 or 4 keywords, negative 3 or 4 keywords here. In this section, I will be mentioning you scholars to quote. All right, this is how you can use your space. Positives में first, देखो, protect plural identities, protects plural identities. Second, gives minorities a political voice. It gives minorities a political voice. Third, deepens participation. And last, enables cultural recognition. It enables cultural recognition. How many keywords? 4. कौन से 4 हैं? एक बार रीड करो जल्दी से. Plural identity, second, minority, third, participation, and fourth is cultural aspect. These are all the positives of religion. Come to negatives. What will be the negatives? Any idea? Again, things like communalism, right? Vote bank politics. Then, sabhi likho. First is communalism. Second, vote bank politics. Third, majority and minority communalism. Majority and minority communalism. Fourth, electoral polarization. Fourth क्या है? Electoral polarization. And last, diversion from development. याद है? Same point we wrote in caste also. There is a diversion from development. So what points did you write? Communalism, vote bank politics, majority minority, then electoral polarization, and again diversion from development. We are able to understand this. These are common points. अब इन्हीं point को थोड़ा specialized कर लेंगे with the use of scholars. First thing I've already told you, Paul Brass same तरह से लिखेंगे. What did Paul Brass say for caste? That elites use them strategically, right? So start first लिखो Paul Brass. देखो पॉलिटिकल एलिट्स में स्ट्रैटेजिकली यूज पॉलिटिकल एलिट्स में स्ट्रैटेजिकली यूज रिलीजन फॉर मोबिलाइजेशन मोबिलाइजेशन नेक्स्ट देखो रोमिला थापर Romila Thapar. Now this view will be similar to the view that we saw कि इंडिया में caste was already there, but because of British, the caste divide became very prominent. Her view is also same. Religion was there, but because of British policies like divide and rule, the divide became very prominent. So right, Romila Thapar and right, modern communal identities, modern communal identities were sharpened by modern communal identities were sharpened by colonial political categorization. Colonial political categorization. Next, Deepankar Gupta. Again, this is a good point to talk about. Professor Deepankar Gupta में लिखो caste and religious identities. Caste and religious identities often overlap in electoral politics. Write his names: Thomas Blom Hansen. I'll also get this book later. Saffron Wave, Thomas Blom Hansen. अभी के लिए नाम लिखो Thomas Blom Hansen. In fact, he will explain the rise of Hindu nationalist movement, RSS, BJP. Okay, इस पे लिखो Hindu nationalism, Hindu nationalism, politically consolidated, Hindu nationalism, politically consolidated a socially fragmented Hindu community. Socially fragmented Hindu community. It consolidated a socially fragmented Hindu community. लिख लिया आपने? So now what we have seen is three things. In fact, one we have seen is what is religion trajectory manifestations. Second, we've seen the impact positive and negative, and we've seen it through scholars. How many scholars have we written, Abhi? So Paul Brass. Next, Romila Thapar, Deepankar Gupta, Thomas Blom Hansen, and Thomas Blom Hansen. Again, we will quote in political parties, the rise of BJP, consolidation of RSS. वहाँ पे फिर से इनको quote करेंगे in the book, the Saffron Wave, for example. Okay. Now, this is a very basic aspect. If I say secularism, I need to know all these three things: Western, Nehruvian, Gandhian, principal distance by Rajiv Bhargav. This we know. Okay. Now, Western may just we'll quickly write the core ideas for each and the limitation for each so that we have an idea in this case. पहले में Western में लिखो strict separation, strict separation between state and religion. Limitation में right, too rigid. It is too rigid for India's society. Too rigid for India's society. Second, Nehruvian. India के केस में you have elements of Nehruvian. Okay. Now Nehruvian में the religious aspect is very limited. It will talk about पहला keyword civic nationalism. Civic nationalism, comma, state-led reform and scientific temper. Scientific temper. So in that sense, you will see there are Western elements in Nehruvian secularism. Okay, which is why secularism of Nehru will not appeal to the masses of India. Why? क्यों होगा? Limitation क्या है? लिखो elite driven and westernized. Yeah, I should say too modern for Indian taste. Limitation is elite driven. Now, if you see Gandhi, Gandhi will bring in the religious and the ethical aspect both. So in Gandhi, right, Sarv Dharm Sambhav. Gandhian aspect is Sarv Dharm Sambhav and ethical religion in public life. Ethical religion in public life. Next, right? अब गांधी के केस में लिमिटेशन क्या होगा? Gandhian cases, less impact or less emphasis on scientific cultural aspect, does not talk much about the regressive practices, right? तो गांधी में लिखेंगे limitation. देखो, Gandhian secularism was also criticized by Ambedkar because Ambedkar will say to put dynamite on Manusmriti and Vedas. तो limitation में पहले लिख सकते हो, देखो, अम्बेडकर्स क्रिटिसिज्म, या सिर्फ लिखो अम्बेडकर्स डायनामाइट, याद आ जाएगा आपको. लिमिटेशन में अम्बेडकर्स डायनामाइट. आई होप दिस विल हेल्प यू रिकॉल. दैट इज द फर्स्ट एग्जांपल. ओके, सेकंड एग्जांपल और लास्ट पे आते हैं फिर. एंड गांधी केस में यू कैन आल्सो राइट वन इज अम्बेडकर एंड सेकंड आल्सो राइट वेग, not very methodological. कह सकते हो वैसे, right? In fact, we can also say Gandhi's understanding of, let's say, Hindus and Muslims appear to be very much morally idealistic. Okay, because his claim was rejected by Jinnah, for example, in two nation theory. Their view was totally different. Okay, so वैसे points बन सकते हैं. We can also talk about that. So I hope that part you are able to write. Okay, इसमें एक जो स्पेस है इसके नीचे, प्लीज राइट अ कोट फर्स्ट एंड राइट गांधी. ये सारे कोट्स एक जगह कंपाइल्ड भी मिलेंगे आपको, बट आई एम मेंशनिंग इट सेपरेटली. देखो, गांधी, those who say religion has nothing to do with politics. Those who say, this quote you can also quote in Machiavelli and Gandhian criticism. Those who say religion has nothing to do with politics do not know what religion means. Do not know ओके. एंड सेकंड इसके नीचे लिखो नेहरू. In Nehru, right, the communalism of the majority, the communalism of majority is far more dangerous is far more dangerous than the communalism of minority, comma, for it bears the garb of nationalism. 2 pages later, we have a separate heading on communalism. The same quote can be used of Nehru. You tell me what this quote means. Take 10 seconds to pause. सोच के बताओ. What does this quote mean to you? True, but why? The point is, majoritarian communalism will also take the form of nationalism. That is why, remember, nationalism is also a very divisive concept. हमने nationalism करा हुआ याद करो. So the point is, majority will say that minorities are not fundamental to the unity, right? They don't help in building national unity. उस वजह से वो बहुत dangerous होगा. And second, they do not have the numerical majority, the minority. So it is easy for them to be captured. So that is a challenge. Okay. Last come to Rajiv Bhargav. तो इसमें लिखो context sensitive engagement, core idea. Context sensitive engagement or distance or distance based on equality and freedom. Distance based on equality and freedom. Now you tell me what can be a limitation. We follow principal distance. What can be a limitation in this? सोच के. अब इसमें one thing, preventing the tyranny of majority, right? Some same case, if you say UCC has to be implemented, one of the arguments is that it should not be uniformity of cultures. याद है? It should be uniformity of rights and not uniformity of cultures. But you have to ensure you have very robust and transparent institutions, right? So limitation क्या हो जाएगी? Compromised institutions, right? Limitation क्या हो जाएगी? Majority becoming very powerful and minority. That is why if we've even seen, अगर हमने कहीं quote भी लिखा होगा, that minorities are the custodians of the constitution. D.E. Smith. Okay? तो इसमें limitation लिख सकते हो. लिखो, it requires impartial institutions. It requires impartial institutions. Okay. Now let's come to, this is a part, this whole section is about constitutional secularism. Okay. For your reference, कहीं पे लिखना भी हो ऊपर heading, नहीं तो this समझ में ही आएगा आपको. Constitutional secularism, directly you have a right of freedom of religion, 25, 26, 27, 28, and even beyond that, 14 to 16, 29, 30, 17, 44, preamble, all of them talks about Indian secularism. Okay. If you recall, in preamble, we've also done the discussion of why was there a debate to remove preamble, to remove socialist and secular from the preamble. वो देखा है हमने. Now here in secularism, or in this case, you need to know some very important cases. Okay, right? सबसे पहला important case, the Shirur Mut case. What is this case about? ERP. हाँ, तो लिखो the Shirur, SHIRUR MUTT लिखो essential religious practices and autonomy, essential religious practices and autonomy of religious dominations. Second case you already know, right? SR Boumai case. Secularism is a part of the basic structure doctrine, BSD. Secularism is the part of basic structure doctrine. Next लिखो, the Bijoy Emmanuel case. The Bijoy, सिर्फ इतना लिखो, forget state of Kerala. Bijoy Emmanuel case and put a dash, right? Right of individual to freedom of conscience and religion. Citizen cannot be compelled to sing national anthem. They provide respectful silence. हमें सिर्फ इतना लिखना है, बिजॉय इमानुअल केस में put a dash and write freedom of conscience. Freedom of conscience. Now one case we've seen many a times. Indian young lawyer, okay, the Indian young lawyer case, याद है ये? Young Lawyer Association. What does Justice Deepak Mishra say? Constitutional morality should supersede social morality. याद आ रहा है कि नहीं याद आ रहा? हाँ? No, Indu Malhotra said the opposite. What did Indu Malhotra say? That, yeah, sometimes constitutional morality becomes judge's morality. She gave a dissenting judgment. Okay? देखो, dissent है Indu Malhotra. Courts या secular courts should not interfere with deeply held religious beliefs. Okay? तो ये लिख लो फिर से, याद नहीं आ रहा आप लोग को, रिवाइज कर रहे हैं. ओके, तो इंडियन यंग लॉयर एसोसिएशन और सबरीमाला केस, इसमें याद रखना, सीएम इज ग्रेटर देन एसएम. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी इज ग्रेटर देन सोशल मोरालिटी, सॉरी सोसाइटल मोरालिटी. हु सेड दिस? जस्टिस दीपक मिश्रा. एंड लास्ट लिखो, शाहबानो डैश मेंटेनेंस, एंड लास्ट शायरा बानो. शाहबानो, शायरा बानो. Shaira Bano, you can mention religious practices, dignity and reform. Okay? Now, if we have to analyze how has secularism done in India, and specifically if I say constitutional secularism, how has it performed? हर चीज में pros and cons होंगे, right? So it has succeeded through, okay? These are the positives to it, but it also has faced challenges. So if I say how has secularism succeeded in India, it will be through institutions, right? अब यहाँ पे क्या है? We have plural religious citizenship. We have protection of minorities institutions. Judicial review है, which articles 13, 32 to 26. Religious reform भी होता है. कौन से examples दोगे इसमें? बहुत example, right? The Hindu Code Bill, bracket में लिखो. The ones that you don't know. The Hindu Code Bill, for example, Shah Bano and Shaira Bano. Even Sabrimala you can write. 4 examples. This tells you how secularism has succeeded. राइट, फॉर्मल इक्वालिटी है आर्टिकल 14. रिमेंबर ईपी रोयप्पा केस सुना है? ईपी रोयप्पा केस सेज दैट इक्वालिटी is antithetical to arbitrariness. It simply means in simpler words कि अगर आप लिख रहे हो या लाइन लिख रहे हो, right, article 14 EP Royappa case, and right, equality is antithetical to arbitrariness. ये क्वेश्चन, कोई भी क्वेश्चन इक्वालिटी का, उसमें आप ये लाइन यूज कर सकते हो. इसी को और आसान शब्द में बोला जाए, इक्वालिटी एंड आर्बिट्रेरीनेस आर स्वॉर्न एनिमीज. I had said equality is antithetical to arbitrariness. Equality is antithetical to arbitrariness. Hmm? It means opposite. Yeah, it is directly against, in very simple words. Equality is antithetical to arbitrariness. ठीक है? I hope this part is clear, right? Peaceful political participation, etc., etc. So we are seeing how it has succeeded. क्या ये समझ में आ रहा है हमें? But it only partially succeeded. This will be a negative side of it, which means there have been communal mobilization. है ना? Example देखते रहो हर एक में जो जो याद आ रहा है. Right? You can write about Babri Masjid. Okay. Demolition. We can talk about selective state intervention, majoritarian, minoritarian identity politics, UCC में personal law controversies, communal mobilization and politicization of religious symbols. Many points are there, which tells you that the reforms, while have been very well-meaning, could not become into full-blown reforms, right? So even this part can also be highlighted here. ठीक है? Between me there is some space. I'll add some points, but एक बार just read this line very carefully. Religion will remain politically relevant because it overlaps with identity and community. The objective, the constitutional objective, is not to eliminate religion from politics, but to prevent its conversion to domination. Right? We would ultimately want all the people to practice the religion in the form that they want to. All right. Now on this part, we will be writing some examples and कुछ points लिखेंगे. ठीक है? And इसको इसी तरह लिखो. Make a bifurcation. These are the positive points. I will tell positive assessment by scholars, and in this part I will tell you the negative assessment by scholars. The challenge that we face. Both things will be writing. Positive में one very obvious point लिखो, राजीव भार्गव. लिखो राजीव भार्गव argues that IS, Indian secularism, Rajiv Bhargav argues that Indian secularism reconciles religious liberty with equality. Religious liberty with equality. Through inverted commas principled distance. Through principled distance. Okay. Similarly, second right जहां पे जुडिशियल रिव्यू लिखा है, उसी को प्रूव करने के लिए सेकंड पॉइंट लिखेंगे. देखो SR बोमई केस, SR बोमई केस, and right, secularism is a part of BSD, basic structure doctrine. Secularism is a part of basic structure doctrine. Third right, Atul Kohli Atul Kohli argues that democratic participation, Atul Kohli argues that democratic participation and institutional accommodation can help manage social diversity. Okay. Now come to the negative side. Positive में हमने क्या क्या देखा? Rajiv Bhargav, SR Bommai and Atul Kohli. Basically Atul Kohli saying political participation, etc. So even religion can be as a tool for mobilization of people. So that can be one example. Now we come to partially succeeded, the negative part. One person you can always quote, Paul Brass. क्या है Paul Brass का quote? Religion is used. We have written this also in the previous page. So I'm just mentioning Paul Brass. You can complete it. या लिख ही लो, चलो लिखो. Paul Brass explains communalism. Paul Brass explains communalism through strategic mobilization of religion. Strategic mobilization of religion by elites. Okay, next, right? T.N. Madan. T.N. Madan argues secularism faces limits in a society. Secularism faces limits in a society where religion remains deeply embedded. Where religion remains deeply embedded in public life. Where religion remains deeply embedded in public life. Because it is so deeply embedded, it leads to selective state intervention. State simply cannot always intervene. It's a deeply religious, deeply embedded society. Okay, this is T.N. Madan. Majoritarian minority identity politics में, right? Flavia Agnes, if you recall, हमने बात करी हुई है. And Flavia Agnes also spoke about personal law controversies. Okay, so right, Flavia Agnes. देखो, need to balance reform with sensitivity. Need to balance reform with sensitivity to diversity and lived realities of women across communities. Lived realities of women across communities. Okay. So here, how many people have we quoted? Paul Brass, T.N. Madan and Flavia Agnes. जिसमें की बात कर रहे हैं how to balance both these things. Okay. In fact, I could have again written, but वो point फिर से repeat होगा. Thomas Blom Hansen अभी लिखा है हमने. Same point you can use for politicization of religious symbols. Okay. How a fragmented section, Hindu was a fragmented section, has united in the case of Hindu nationalism. This is what he refers to as the saffron wave. Okay, so even that, so mobilization में problem नहीं है. Problem क्या होती है? When that is getting weaponized. So Thomas Blom's point can also be written in a positive sense also, because initially he's saying about mobilization of a community that is fragmented, but the point is some people in that may be extremely, or they may be more extremist oriented. That is what creates a problem. Okay? Now come to another small section within this topic. What is that? Communalism. Okay. Now what is, अच्छा, by the way, communalism is also there in GS1 proper topic syllabus में mentioned है आपके Indian society में. Okay. Whatever you do here, this is also going to enrich your perspective. Now when I say communalism, what comes to your mind? Right. So communalism ultimately, see, there can be communal mobilization, which when becomes extreme will lead to communal violence. Okay. अब communalism समझने के लिए there are actually 4 perspectives. Okay. Before we do the perspectives, write a couple of points on communalism. सबसे पहले एक लाइन लिखो, चार्ल्स टेलर. हु इज चार्ल्स टेलर बाय द वे? वेरी गुड, वेरी गुड. देखो चार्ल्स टेलर ब्रैकेट में लिखो कम्युनिटेरियन. This point that we are writing can be used in the introduction of religion also. देखो चार्ल्स टेलर mentions that secularism is the necessity for a diverse, heterogeneous society like India. Secularism is a necessity for a diverse, heterogeneous society like India. Okay, ये लिख लिया आपने. In the space that is given, you can draw a mind map like I am making. I'll tell you 4 perspectives. First है essentialist perspective. Right, essentialist में स्कॉलर लिख लेंगे लुई डुमो. Try to recall what Louis Dumont had said. क्या बोला था इन्होंने? Caste is going to be rigid. Okay. I will be telling you 4, so you can draw like this. सब space रहेगा अपने पास काफी लिखने के लिए. एक एक लाइन लिखनी है हमें. So in essentialist, write. In essentialist, you will write. Verse 1 line लिखो. Hindu and Muslims have antagonistic interests. Hindu and Muslims have antagonistic interests. Second लिखो, इसी में second bullet. Provides justification for two nation theory. Provides justification for two nation theory. Essentialist मतलब क्या होता है? आपने सुना है? Biological determinism, essentialism. तो यहाँ पे boil down करा गया that Hindu and Muslim in this case are two separate entities, cannot live together, which justifies communalism. This is one perspective. ठीक है? First perspective. Second है कौन सा? Instrumentalist. सेकेंड इंस्ट्रूमेंटलिस्ट लिखेंगे. नाम से समझ में आ रहा होगा. The moment I'm writing Paul Brass, you will understand that people have been made an instrument. The mobilization of people has happened not because people wanted to be divided, but because of vested interests. As simple as that. So in the instrumentalist perspective, right, people are not communal themselves. People are not communal themselves. Rather, they are mobilized by elites having vested interests. Elites having vested interests. ठीक है? Next, come to institutionalist approach. I also discussed this approach with you. The Indian society was divided, we agree. But because of colonial interventions, colonial policies, it became even more fragmented. Can we say this? So, right? Communalism perpetuates because of states' divisive policies. Communism perpetuates because of states' divisive politics. Bracket में लिख सकते हो divide and rule. How many of you had covered Sir Syed Ahmad Khan with me? याद है? किस पर्सपेक्टिव में डालोगे? Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Initially, he was a supporter of Hindu-Muslim unity, but in the later part of his life, what happened? What did he say? Because of the Hindu-Urdu controversy, if you recall, then he said Hindus and Muslims will be different, and his ideas became a justification for the two-nation theory. So then I can put him here, but I will have to specify then in the second half, the later half of his age. Initially, if you recall, he also spoke about India is a beautiful bride, and then he will talk about Hindu-Muslim unity in the initial part of it. But later on, okay, he will justify because of the Hindu-Urdu controversy, and then his views come closer to the essentialist perspective of communal rights. Jinnah also, yes, absolutely. Jinnah also, because the two-nation theory was justified ultimately by Jinnah, okay? But usse bhi pehle the ideas of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan actually become an important aspect in that, right? So that is what we are saying. Did you write Romila Thapar's view? What did you write? Divisive policies. Last are social constructivist. This perspective we'll also see in IR. Social constructivist. देखो, communities hold views about each other. Communities hold views about each other without verifying them. Communities hold views about each other without verifying them. Okay. Now in communalism, इसी में हेडिंग लिखो, मिनी हेडिंग लिखो, इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ रिलीजन, influence of religion in India. Influence of religion in India. Very brief keywords I'll tell you. अगर एक क्वेश्चन आता है, you will divide this question in two phases. Pre-independence and post-independence. Some points we've already covered above, but we'll quickly do a recap. सबसे important point pre-independence में लिखो. First is 1857 mutiny and British appeasement. 1857 mutiny and British appeasement. Second, right, Hindu-Urdu controversy in North India. Hindu-Urdu controversy in North India. थर्ड देखो, पार्टीशन ऑफ बंगाल एंड ब्रिटिश अपीजमेंट ऑफ मुस्लिम्स. Partition of Bengal and British appeasement of Muslims. Next, Muslim League 1906 and Hindu Mahasabha 1915. 1906 and 1915. Next, separate electorates 1909 and communal award 1932. Next, because Savarkar's Hindutva theory 1923 and Lahore resolution 1940. I'm just giving you keywords here. Hindutva theory. If we see the impact of religion on India या Indian politics, ये सारे points हैं. Pre-independence also is there, and there is also post-independence. So I said Savarkar's Hindutva theory 1923 and Lahore resolution 1940. ठीक? This is pre-independence. In fact, if I draw a line in between, what is this line? And partition is also based on the religious aspect, right? So लिखो next, partition. Just remember, partition of India also influenced by religion. And now come to post-independence. अब यहाँ पे पहले लिखो जबलपुर, Ranchi and Gujarat riots in 1960s. Jabalpur, Ranchi and Gujarat riots 1960s. Second, Khalistan movement and Sikh riots 1980s. Next देखो, Shah Bano, the Shah Bano judgment. Next, Ayodhya, Mumbai and Godhra riots. Ayodhya, Mumbai and Godhra riots. Now I've talked about riots a lot, okay? So last heading in communalism, right? Analysis of communal rights. Analysis of communal rights. You can only analyze them if you know some of the facts. That is why we've written some examples. How do we analyze these rights is also important, right? तो इस पे लिखो Paul Brass calls them, according to Paul Brass, जो rights होती हैं, he calls them staged drama in 3 phases. Staged drama in 3 phases. First phase है preparatory phase, तैयारी होगी. Precipitatory phase, and third is explanatory phase. Preparatory समझ में आ रहा है? The preparation will happen just before the riot. Okay. In fact, this will tell you the riots that we see sometimes outside. We feel that the riots are sporadic, unplanned, but a lot of planning actually goes into a riot. It is very organized. In fact, in the modern riots, you will see organization through social media, anonymous, it proper जैसे आपने सुना है ना terms like toolkit, that there's a toolkit that is shared in advance. This is how many tweets have to be stormed, this, that, this, and that. So it looks like a sporadic thing, but it has a lot of meticulous organization. So तीन चीजें, preparatory phase, precipitatory. For precipitatory, if you want, you can write. देखो preparatory में preparation करनी है, precipitatory में क्या है? People are mobilized to action. Explanatory में, this is where the blame game starts. Different political parties will say this is to blame, this is to blame, right? So this is one. Next लिखो a couple of more people just to explain what has happened. So first is Paul Brass. He calls this a staged drama. Okay. Second आ जाओ. इसी लिखो, the riot is not merely an emotional. The riot is not merely an emotional explosion, comma, it is prepared, activated, and interpreted by organized interests. Okay. एक और टर्म पॉपुलर है, स्पेशली व्हेन द गुजरात वायलेंस वाज एनालाइज्ड. दीपांकर गुप्ता यूजेस अ टर्म पिकनिक राइट्स. ओके, नाम सुना है पिकनिक राइट्स? द टर्म, इफ यू जस्ट सी, नॉर्मली व्हेन यू थिंक ऑफ राइट्स, you will think of that people will be in extreme anger, fears when the riots are happening. Picnic riot says that people in riots are also celebrating that part. Okay, so it's a different kind of a spectacle. So you can write this term. Just in one line we will be writing it. Because Dipankar Gupta used picnic riots, the picnic rioting, to describe violence, in which participants display celebration and collective enjoyment rather than, so celebration and collective enjoyment rather than acting nearly out of, fear or anger. हाँ, example हटा भी सकते हो, but you can talk about picnic riots. He actually used it in the case of Gujarat riots. Okay, but the point is, the idea tells you that how sometimes violence dehumanizes. Okay, that riots are also celebrated. That is the idea. So you can just simply mention the idea if a question is asked on this front. Okay. वापस आते हैं. So I think analysis में these are the points you can talk about. Okay, come to the last heading, which is the communism में आपने perspectives देखे, you have seen how riots happen, how to describe it, Paul Brass and the analysis associated. Now come to this. This will almost bring everything at one place. Question है, Indian secularism is a myth. इसके लिए what you do, take a blank page, spend 2-3 minutes. If you get a question like this, and don't think that sir how to write in PSIR or GS. अभी ये सोचो, how would you write a question like this? I will tell you a framework on how to write tough questions like this. This is a UPSC PYQ. Secularism in India is a myth. If you are able to think of, याद है किसी को? UPSC 2017 asked an essay. Women empowerment in India is a myth. Same template, a question was asked. Oh, sorry, the question was empowerment of new women in India is a myth. That was the question of UPSC essay. ठीक है? गुड पॉइंट्स बोथ ऑफ यू, एटलीस्ट सोच पा रहे हो, ठीक है, दैट इज अ गुड पार्ट। क्योंकि इस क्वेश्चन को ब्रेक डाउन करना है 2-3 पार्ट्स में, है ना। तो डेफिनेशन आ गई, डीपली entrenched. So first you have to say why it appears to be, then why it is not so, okay, and then in between instead of a negative concept, ठीक है, decent है, that's good. इसको भी लिखेंगे भी हम लोग, I'll give you bullet points. ठीक है, okay. देखो in this question, whenever you see a question like this, how should we try to process it? Right, what is the meaning of myth? It means secularism is not there in reality, that is the meaning of it. Again I am contrasting it with another question that was asked, कहीं पे अलग से लिखो उसको. This was a UPSC essay, empowerment of new women in India. इसको कहीं प्रैक्टिस करना. The empowerment of new women in India is a myth. This is a UPSC 2017 essay. और आप सोचो, ये क्वेश्चन इज नॉट empowerment of women in India is a myth. The question is empowerment of new women in India is a myth. Okay. So again, you have to define what is the new women, but again, all the challenges they still face, despite development, despite education, despite jobs, many things we can talk about. Fine. अब ऐसे क्वेश्चनों में सबसे सिंपल अप्रोच क्या होती है? You know, political theory पढ़ा है हमने. You had traditional approach, you had behavioral approach, and then you had post behavioral approach. Here also, and this is something that we call as synthesis. This is only for your understanding, ये सब लिखना नहीं है आंसर में. One is, sorry, मैंने synthesis से start किया है. You have a thesis. Thesis is the statement that you are referring to. Antithesis is what? The counter to it. And then you will put all of them at one place. For this particular question, of course, you should also have a introduction. इस क्वेश्चन का जो क्रक्स है, the core demand of it is secularism is what traditional definition is, strict separation of religion from the state. Now we have not followed that definition. What do we have is a principal distance. We call that Rajiv Bhargav model. Uske beyond भी there is one more thing, that India is a deeply religious society. Religion is embedded, entrenched in the social life of people, right? And how does the political response vary as per that? Political response is not very consistent. This is the basic problem. Sometimes, and this is what we refer to as selective state intervention. So I have to explain why it appears to be a myth on certain grounds. ऐसा क्यों लगता है that in India secularism is a myth? But second thing is, I will counter these claims that it is not a myth. There are certain safeguards, there is judicial review, there is this and that. The essence is there. And then, like I said, we have to talk about a principal distance. ये है मेरी synthesis. यहाँ पे again, you have to talk about maybe Rajiv Bhargav. He says the Indian Constitution is the negotiated, context-sensitive document. It is not a direct imitation of the West. Yes, that is something that will come. So when I look at this, this is a slightly more nuanced question that requires some understanding on your part also. ठीक है? तो इस पे सबसे पहले एक लाइन का we will write an introduction. Then, if possible, draw 3 columns. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. For each, I will tell you keywords. And last, we will write a conclusion on that part. The idea here is, which I am assuming, is this will help you frame the question, write the points to it. This is a slightly more complicated question on this topic, that secularism is a myth. Okay, so I hope we are clear on this. So you can just write a one-line intro. Secularism in India was never conceived as secularism in India was never conceived as complete exclusion. It was never conceived as complete exclusion of religion from public life. Complete exclusion of religion from public life. Full stop. It emerged as a constitutional response. It emerged as a constitutional response to a deeply religious and socially diverse society. Deeply religious and socially diverse society seeking to reconcile religious freedom, comma, minority protection and social reform. This points will always help you understand the basis of secularism in Indian society. Ours is not, or in fact I should say, ours is a very different society as compared to the West. Okay, so we cannot blindly imitate what the Western model of secularism is. Okay, now write the heading thesis. If you want, you can make 3 columns like this. I'll be giving you keywords for that, or if you want, you can use this, but उसमें आप space उतना use नहीं कर पाओगे अच्छे से. For some things only the keyword is good enough, or in some I'll give you small explanation to that also. सबसे पहले लिखेंगे point religious mobilization invoking religious what did I say? Religious mobilization invoking symbols and religious identities. Here in the bracket, capital mein likho Paul Brass. Now I'm not repeating, we've already written 2 times. What is the idea of Paul Brass? Religious mobilization can be by the elites for their own advantages, for their vested interests. This can be one. Second point. Elite theory part में आप use कर सकते हो, right? Circulation of elites may think of again dominant caste, M.N. Srinivas. I can use that example. Okay, but in traditional 1A, I will use examples like Pareto, Mosca, etc. Right? आप वो बोलोगे the elitist theory of power also finds its expression in India, looking into works of let's say M.N. Srinivas. Okay? हाँ 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 वहाँ पे लिख सकते हो, वहाँ link कर सकते हो, right? So what I was saying, first you have written, second right? लिखो vote bank politics. Where religious communities are seen as homogeneous blocks, where religious communities are seen as homogeneous blocks. Third लिखो politicization of personal laws. Third is politicization of personal laws. Put a dash and write debate over UCC. comma, gender justice reveals the tension between individual equality and community rights. Next, a point we have already written, but you can still write it. Selective state intervention. Selective state intervention creates allegations of appeasement or majoritarian bias. Selective state intervention creates allegations of appeasement or majoritarian bias. Next, देखो religious symbolism by political parties. Religious symbolism by political parties. अब इसमें you can understand they will use a lot of identity and symbols, temple visits, again, which again will destroy the belief that secularism is there, right? So parties are going directly using secular, let's say religious symbols. Okay. Next, देखो, failure to prevent communal violence. Failure to prevent communal violence and recurring riots. Shows the gap between constitutional secularism and political practice. ठीक है. Now come to anti. ऐसा क्यों नहीं है? इसमें already the points I wanted to convey already are covered. Think of Nehruvian secularism, think of Gandhian secularism, think of SR Bommai case, that is the judicial review aspect, think of Article 25 to 28, think of Article 29-30 preamble. We have so many ways to counter the claim, because in India you cannot directly have a Western imposition. ठीक है. In fact, Ashish Nandi also criticizes the, अगर वेस्ट में क्या होता है, वेस्ट में the approach to secularism is very different, and that is also criticized. Okay, for a sensitive society, or let's say pluralistic society like India, you cannot directly imitate the West. Okay, so here, right, antithesis में देखो नेहरूवियन व्यू. सबसे पहले नेहरूवियन व्यू देखो, he refused to define the nation through religion. Which is why his focus is on civic nationalism, right? Scientific temper. जो keywords हमने देखे. The first is this. Second come to is Gandhian view. Dash करके लिखो, सर्वधर्म संभव and rejected communal domination and theocracy. Sarvadharma Sambhav rejected communal domination and theocracy. Third, right, equal citizenship, Article 14 to 16, comma, religious freedom, 25 to 28, and minority rights, 29 to 30, provide constitutional safeguards. Next, S.R. Bomai case dash secularism is a part of the basic structure, doctrine, और इसमें लास्ट में लिखो plural participation, put a dash through elections, political parties, universities, rather than being excluded from the state, rather than being excluded from the state. तो मेन चीज क्या है, देयर आर डिफरेंट communities who continue to participate in it, to different associations that they have, and that is required for a country like India. अब हमें इन दोनों चीजों को we have to now balance it into this. The core idea will remain Rajiv Bhargav's idea, right? That in India you will require a multi-layered approach. There cannot be one single approach to come to synthesis. इसमें लिखो Indian secularism is neither a strict wall of separation. It is not a strict wall of separation, nor merely a myth. ठीक है, अब इसमें वी विल बैलेंस, राइट? देखो, इट इज अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल नॉर्म, it is a constitutional norm embedded in right and equality, right and equality. Next, Philipov, it is an incomplete political practice. Here we are acknowledging the issue. It is an incomplete political practice because electoral and administrative institutions sometimes apply it inconsistently. Because electoral and administrative institutions sometimes apply it inconsistently. It remains a contested project, constantly redefined through courts, social reforms and political movements. To end this, likho, Rajiv Bhargav provides the most suitable framework for Indian secularism. The state may keep its distance. The state may keep its distance to protect religious freedom and autonomy. The state may keep distance protect religious freedom and autonomy, but the state can also intervene. But the state can also intervene to prevent discrimination, domination, and exclusion. ठीक है, कंक्लूजन में आ जाओ, लास्ट लिखो. इंडियन सेकुलरिज्म इज अ फ्रेमवर्क ऑफ negotiated coexistence. Indian secularism is a framework of negotiated coexistence among communities with unequal power. It is a negotiated coexistence among communities with unequal power. Communities with unequal power. ठीक है. This question, the content of it, you can also use in GS1, even in GS2. GS2 में अगर कोई tougher question आएगा secularism पे, it will address these dimensions. Of course, in PSIR you can get a question on this. PSIR में हो सकता है 3 से 4 डायमेंशन पे पूछे, या तो इस पे पूछेगा, या तो पूछेगा analysis of communalism, or it will go into the other dimensions like we have seen. This is the constitutional angle, Supreme Court cases, success, नहीं हुआ, क्यों हुआ, okay, and historically how is it manifest. So there are various things that we have seen, right? Now come to the last section, that is ethnicity. सबसे पहले बात बेसिक से definition. Ethnicity refers to collective identity. What is it based on? Ancestry, language, culture, history, memory. ठीक. अब ये बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है इसके बाद. In democracy, again, ethnicity is a double-edged sword. It can become a vehicle of representation and recognition, which is the good part. But when combined with territorial insecurity, as we see in Assam, in other parts, migration, of course, this again is the issue of Assam, especially after the 1971 Bangladesh liberation. Unequal development has happened in different areas, and weak institutions, it may generate prolonged conflict, right? Now, what is the idea concept here? दो terms हैं यहाँ पे. Ethnic nationalism, okay? A community which wants autonomy, statehood, sovereignty, is ground पे that they are a distinct political nation. Do we see ethnic nationalism in India? Some movements for that. कहाँ पे? चलो, let's say the demand for Bodoland, the great Nagalim demand, okay? And here there are कहाँ? You were saying sir? Theory है, but वहाँ पे they don't want a separate land. For example, we can have regionalism. Excessive regionalism can sometimes become exclusive. For example, जो आपने देखा, the imposition of Maratha या any language, for example. Okay, so that is one thing. But in some cases, there is a separate statehood demand also. But that demand is sometimes fueled from the idea of ethnic nationalism. That we are so rooted in these claims of statehood, sovereignty, autonomy. This can be there. दूसरा क्या हम देखते हैं? Recognition and redistribution. Okay, आप कल्चर को रिकॉग्नाइज करें. दूसरा material claims, which means again यहाँ पे आपने सुना terms like tons of soil theory. Okay, so people saying that the resources that are present, they should have the first claim to the land or the jobs or resources or representation. Okay, now इसमें भी I'll be adding some scholars here. दो चीजें हैं. Ethnic movements contribute to democracy, but they also pose a risk to democracy. Both things are true. Okay, कैसे? Representation है distinct communities का, of course. Federal or territory, it accommodates. It can also have autonomous institutions. यहाँ पे लिखो bracket में. Which institutions are created by 6th schedule? नाम बताओ. ADC, autonomous district council, write that example. It can improve electoral participation, absolutely, right? People want to be a part of the political process. Recognition of language, culture, customary rights. Okay. Language पे any example of movement that comes to your mind? Dravidian movement लिख सकते हो. So there is a democratic contribution of these ethnic movements, but there is a risk also. Similar risk है जो अभी देखी हमने. Vote bank politics. Okay. They can be competitive ethnic outbidding. What is the meaning of this? Within a region, there can be multiple groups. Okay. Different groups have different claims. So यहाँ पे क्या होगा? One group says that I want 5 rights. You say 6 rights, 7 rights. So there is a lot of competitive outbidding that is happening. Okay. The group that promises the highest rights or the most extreme case is going to get more public attention. Yes or no? This is a term. Can this lead to territorial disputes? Yes. Bodoland Territorial Council hai, okay. The Karbi Onglang district. Again, you can think of these territories and areas. Kukis and Maitis mein, again, you know, the hill areas and the land areas, the difference in development. Okay. It can lead to polarization and exclusion, and uski wajah se bhi there is a problem of democratic governance deficit. Many ethnic movements are also based on lack of development. इसलिए इस पूरे टॉपिक का समरी क्या है एथनिक मूवमेंट्स का? One is include people in the movements, hear them out, have a dialogue, but more importantly, address the governance deficit. Especially when you see the movements of Northeast, the challenge that they face is unequal development that has happened. उसकी वजह से problems होती हैं, ठीक है? Again, issues of secessionism, insurgency. Any example of insurgency? No. चलो उल्फा ग्रुप्स है, okay. NSCN, NSCN maybe there are 2 factions, okay. Isak Mawaya, what they will do, they will carry out some activity in Northeast, okay, especially around the area of Nagaland, and then they'll go to Myanmar to escape scrutiny. And it is one of the reasons why the FMR, the free movement regime of Myanmar, was scrapped, because the idea was that Myanmar's territory was being used for anti-India activities, and that is something that we've always maintained, that our neighbors should not allow their territory to be used for anti-India activities, right? So these are few things that you have to understand, okay. These are basic points. अब इन्हीं points को थोड़ा सा और standard करके the space that is there here will write. इसमें भी कोशिश करो, write it in 2 parts. Divide your page in 2 parts. Okay, so पहले लिखो Frederick Barth. Frederick Barth argues that ethnicity. अब यहाँ पे ना some anthropologists also who write about this will also be quoting. So Frederick Barth argues that ethnicity is sustained not merely by cultural traits. Ethnicity is sustained not merely by cultural traits, but by boundaries, distinguishing, us versus them. Boundaries distinguishing us versus them. अच्छा, जो यहाँ पे डेफिनेशन लिखी है एथनिसिटी की, इस पे ब्रैकेट में एक नाम लिख लो. One second. Right, Daniel Horowitz, sorry, not Daniel. Donald Horowitz. जो डेफिनेशन लिखी है उसमें ये ब्रैकेट में लिख लेना. This is one step extra effort. Otherwise, even this will do. ठीक है. So one is definition. Second thing that we had seen was, क्या नाम लिखा आपने? फ्रेडरिक बार्थ. Okay. Now, next, right? Right. जेम्स मेना. याद है जेम्स मेना कहाँ पढ़ा है हमने? हमने पढ़ा है लोकल सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट में इंफॉर्मेशन फ्लो. याद है? नाउ राइट, जेम्स मेना in inverted commas ethnicity and politics in India. Ethnicity and politics in India. Says it is difficult to determine ethnicity in India. It is difficult to determine ethnicity in India. This also tells you the Western model of ethnicity analysis is difficult to implement in India. Likho, he says it is difficult to determine ethnicity in India. Full stop. In India, various ethnic markers cut across each other. In India, various ethnic markers cut across each other. Various ethnic markers cut across each other. ठीक है. तो इंडिया में क्या है? प्योरली रिलीजन नहीं हो सकता. क्यों? रिलीजन ऑल्सो कॉन्साइड विद रीजन, कैन ऑल्सो कॉन्साइड विद कास्ट. तो इंडिया में इंटरसेक्शन है. And this is the reason also why very strong ethnic movements, barring from the movements, let's say Northeast, you cannot purely define them as ethnic movements. There is a lot of intersection in those movements. Is that clear? So we have seen Frederick Barth, one. Second, we have said, what did Frederick Barth say? Us versus them. Okay. Now, we will be also seeing, I think, 2 points लिखे आपने. You also write causes. Causes में there are different theories explained by different scholars. Causes of ethnic movements. Write it in the space, only 3 or 4 scholars I'll tell you. सबसे पहला रजनी कोठारी. Rajni Kothari, right? Excessive modernization and homogenizing tendencies of state. Excessive modernization and homogenizing tendencies of the state lead to EM ethnic movements. Lead to ethnic movements. Rajni Kothari, are you able to understand this meaning? What is the idea here? इसका मतलब है the respective cultures don't get adequate recognition. That is the big claim that is being made here. Okay, that is another issue. Next, right? SD, Professor SD Muni. नाम सुना है? Even in Indian Nepal, in other areas, you'll hear a lot about him. Okay, JNU. देखो Professor SD Muni. Now he will again say in very basic simple words that state did not focus on development, and again this has led to these ethnic movements. Okay, so right, erosion of ideology, erosion of ideology and failure to implement development policies, failure to implement development policies of the state, failure to implement development policies of the state. इससे क्या इश्यू होगा? एथनिक मूवमेंट्स होंगे, ठीक है. Now write one more, लिखो अतुल कोहली, the last one. अच्छा, with Atul Kohli I'll tell you a term. In fact, in one of the classes we've discussed this. Atul Kohli talks about something known as and while discussing I did tell you this concept is very similar to which idea? Legitimation crisis. Okay. Abhi Atul Kohli, in this case, he will say the reason for ethnic movements is twofold. First is too much democracy, and second is too less democracy. और इस solution भी यही दे गए. He'll say the solution to the movements also rise in democracy. Right? So लिखो Atul Kohli. Atul Kohli says democracy is both the problem as well as the solution. Democracy is both the problem as well as the solution. Full stop. Too much democracy, too much democracy. इसका मतलब क्या? Too much. What is too much democracy? Democracy में what do we do? First of all, elections will happen. For elections to happen, people have to be more mobilized. अब mobilization किस पे हो रहा है? On identity lines. Too much. People will be asked to vote. If that happens, people will have some consciousness. People will have some solidarity. Right? This is too much democracy. What is too less democracy? अब इसमें क्या है? Think of Northeast and think of over centralization of powers. इससे क्या होगा? People, or at least they will not feel they will feel that autonomy, their culture is not being given a due focus. इसको हम बोलते too less democracy and too much democracy. Both things can be highlighted. Too much and too less. Okay. So इसको लिखो. What have you written? Too much democracy. Bracket में लिखो. Abnormal mobilization during elections. Abnormal mobilization during elections and too less democracy. Bracket. Too less democracy. Bracket में लिखो. Over centralization of powers. Over centralization of powers. Over centralization of powers, right? So if you have seen our analysis, just quickly see who all have we quoted. सबसे पहले देखो, see the definition. Definition is by Donald Horowitz. You can use that. Next, Frederick Barth. What is the idea of Frederick Barth? Us versus them. Next, जेम्स मेनर ने बोला क्या है? वो इंडिया में. So when you talk about the reason of Indian movements में identities don't cut across. There is an intersection. Next, Rajni Kothari. What is the idea? Too much of modernization. Next, S.D. Muni. Almost same thing he will say. What does he say? Failure to implement development policies and slowly steadily erosion of ideology. Okay. And the last thing is Atul Kohli. Too much democracy, too less democracy. Democracy is the problem. Democracy is the solution. Fine. Now there is a table that is mentioned. This table is for quick idea. अगर आपको कोई बहुत डिटेल्ड क्वेश्चन मिलता है, ओके, बिकॉज द पॉइंट इज द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट दैट यू सी कैन बी मल्टी डायमेंशनल, ओके. हिस्ट्री कैन बी ए पॉइंट, colonial frontier administration है, ओके. इंटीग्रेशन पूरा हुआ नहीं, boundaries that we have inherited, this can be a problem. Territory is a problem. माइग्रेशन के चैलेंजेस है, माइग्रेशन में आप ब्रैकेट में लिख सकते हो, देखो असम अकॉर्ड 1985, द असम अकॉर्ड 1985, ओके. क्विकली गो थ्रू द अदर वंस. रिसोर्सेज है, कंपटीशन ऑफ लैंड, फॉरेस्ट, मिनरल्स, जॉब, ठीक है. थिंक ऑफ जल, जंगल, जमीन, और द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट दैट हैपन इन नॉर्थ ईस्ट, तो वहां पे दिस एम्बेडेड पार्ट इज देयर, रिसोर्सेज. रिसोर्सेज में भी लिख सकते हो ब्रैकेट में द सन ऑफ सॉइल थ्योरी. In resources you can use the theory sun of soil theory. Then of course there is identity part. Governance जहां पे लिखा है ब्रैकेट में लिखो poor implementation of PESA and FRA. Poor implementation of PESA and FRA. Security है, insurgency, militarization, AFSPA, cycles of violence. Okay, fine. This you understand. Insurgency वाले पार्ट पे if you can remember at the example of NSCN that we had quoted, ULFA, different groups. External factors में एक टर्म लिखा है porous borders, you understand this. एक टर्म लिखा है sanctuaries. What is meaning of sanctuaries? अब यहाँ पे एग्जाम्पल है म्यांमार. म्यांमार becomes a sanctuary for, और sanctuary मतलब safe harbor, a safe space for terrorists. So they do an activity, they go back. So that is a sanctuary. Arms flow, cross border ethnic links, plus लिखो, plus लिखो death triangle and death crescent. You know the drugs export, and यहाँ पे the China factor can also be there because Chinese involvement can also fuel some of the conflicts. ठीक है. अच्छा, आई थिंक फॉर कपल ऑफ थिंग हिस्ट्री में एक बार आ जाओ. हिस्ट्री में लिखो इनर लाइन. यू नो द इनर लाइन, व्हाट इज दिस? हिल और वैली एरिया से रिलेटेड, राइट. इनर लाइन, कॉमा लिखो नागा क्लेम्स, द नागा क्लेम्स ऑफ सॉवरेंटी. इस पार्ट पे, हिस्ट्री पार्ट पे, राइट स्कॉलर संजीव बारुआ, and write Sanjeev Barwa and put a dash, लिखो northeast conflicts. Northeast conflicts are linked to incomplete post-colonial integration. Northeast conflicts are linked to incomplete post-colonial integration. Territory में what example did we write or did we not write? Territory में लिख लो common examples. देखो बोडो, कॉमा कुकी एंड ग्रेटर नागालिम. बोडो, कुकी, ग्रेटर नागालिम. माइग्रेशन में तो ऑफ कोर्स वी नो असम. अगर अब व्हेन आई से असम, तो CAA 2019 and NRC debate, all of that is a part of this. ठीक है. सन ऑफ सॉइल थ्योरी किसकी है? Remember this name. Son of soil theory, if you write, you write this name. Myron Wiener. So these specific names you can always mention. Resources में तो of course migration resources दोनों में you can mention Myron Wiener, son of soil theory. When it comes to identity, identity में remember Frederick Barth. He will talk about us versus them. Frederick Barth can be quoted in identity. गवर्नेंस की अगर बात करेंगे किसको कोट करोगे? आई गिव यू अ हिंट. क्राइसिस ऑफ गवर्नेबिलिटी, अतुल कोहली. अतुल गवर्नेंस में लिखो क्राइसिस ऑफ गवर्नेबिलिटी. व्हाट इज क्राइसिस ऑफ गवर्नेबिलिटी? थिंक ऑफ पुअर इंप्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ लॉज, वीक इंस्टीट्यूशंस, गवर्नेंस डेफिसिट, पुअर इंप्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ FRA 2006, पैसा एक्ट 1996. ये क्या हो गया? क्राइसिस ऑफ गवर्नेबिलिटी. ठीक है, बाकी तो उल्फा एंड दिस ऑल वी हैव ऑलरेडी रिटन. एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर्स में चाइना एंगल यू शुड रिमेंबर, चाइना म्यांमार एंगल यू शुड रिमेंबर. ओके, all right, come to the next one. This was the major part that you should have known. आगे आ जाओ. अब इस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को मैनेज कैसे कर सकते हैं? ऑल्सो GSU हैव अ लुक एट. टेक 30 seconds, quickly go through this. Conflict management, how does it happen? Okay, now the space that is remaining उसको लिखते हैं. You will divide it into, or you can just mention it in this sense. एक लिखेंगे, and second we'll just almost 2 or 3 points in both of them we'll write. What can be done even better? Already we know some points that are there in your handout, but additionally a couple of things extra I'll write. लिखो effect of ethnic movement. पहला लिखो, it creates conflict between natives and migrants. It creates a conflict between natives and migrants, as explained by Myron Wiener in Sons of Soil Theory. Now you know how to integrate your scholar. Second लिखो, it causes inverted commas में mutual distrust. It causes mutual distrust and again inverted commas discrimination. Resulting in separatism and identity politics. Bracket Ashutosh Varshne. अब देखो, अब ये पॉइंट में क्या है? आर्ग्यूमेंट स्ट्रांग है, सपोर्टेड बाय अ स्कॉलर. इवन इफ आई रिमेंबर द आर्ग्यूमेंट, माय जॉब इज डन. Sorry. Resulting in separatism and identity politics, supported by who is saying this? Ashutosh Varshne. Okay. Third, right? It leads to inverted commas crisis of governability. Who will say this? Atul Kohli. It leads to crisis of governability. Bracket Atul Kohli, where there are weak political organizations, where there are weak political mobilizations, sorry, organizations and strong social groups. We come to solutions. सबसे देखो सरकारिया कमीशन. तो फर्स्ट वी हैव डन विद दिस. ये हो गया हमारा इफेक्ट्स. क्या कर सकते हैं? नाउ वी आर राइटिंग दिस पार्ट, सेकंड पार्ट, सॉल्यूशंस. राइट, सरकारिया कमीशन ऑलरेडी वी हैव सीन, ये सब हम कर रहे हैं. फेडरल 6th schedule 371 autonomous peace accords dialogue development, right? Some extra points now we are writing. Solution से first right सरकारिया कमीशन and right suggested more effective democratic decentralization. तो देखो क्वेश्चन कहां से कहां चला गया. क्वेश्चन तो एथनिक मूवमेंट का, it ends with local self government and autonomy. Suggested for more effective democratic decentralization, सरकारिया कमीशन. Second, आशुतोष वार्ष ने highlights the need for greater civic engagement, the need for greater civic engagement among different ethnic groups, along with their socio-economic development, along with their socio-economic development. Last, Atul Kohli, right? Even if democracy creates a problem, even if democracy creates problem in a multi-ethnic society like India, even if democracy creates a problem in multi-ethnic societies like India, only democracy can offer the solution. Only democracy can offer solution. Bracket में लिखो participation and deliberation. Only democracy can offer solution. Right? Come to the last page. अब देखो ये इसलिए है again so that you don't think of these things happening isolated. I'm talking of intersection. Right? Now, just quickly go through this. If I say caste and religion are intersecting, how are they intersecting? Right? Caste exists across religious communities. Dalit conversion movements have happened. Caste-based inequalities within minority communities. Religious mobilization may incorporate or even suppress caste cleavages. Region में देखो caste alliances vary कर सकते हैं. Have we seen all the examples? Right? Dominant caste, whose term is this? M.N. Srinivas. Okay, derives power. Regional parties can translate caste power into federal bargaining, again something that we talk about. Religion or ethnicity भी हो सकता है. In fact, the Kuki Meitei movement also has religion aspect to it. Yes or no? The Christians versus, right? It may overlap with language, tribe, territory. Okay. Same thing. Northeast को आप सिर्फ religion से understand नहीं कर सकते. There are multiple identity factors which are at play. So one has to understand that there is an intersection that happens. Okay. एक बार quickly have a look at this, the last part also. How caste, ethnicity, how are they operating? Able to see this? Acha, ethnic movements, I want to ask you, do you know any good example of ethnic movements in India? कोई अच्छा example? पढ़ा है internal security? You know MNF, Mizo National Front? It struggled for 20 years and it was able to have, so in fact the faction which led the Mizo demand, okay, it is the faction that is the first, the CM was the head of that party only. I'm forgetting the name right now. Okay. So that again I teach in internal security, but my point is you should also know, या फिर I think I will add this, एक बार पीछे जाओ, एक दो example add कर लेते हैं so that you have both balanced perspective wherever you have space in ethnic movements. So वहाँ पे just write a couple of points. हाँ, जो भी अच्छे, मतलब we should know at least both sides, right? So it should not be one way only. तो इसमें I'll just tell you. अच्छा इसमें करो, I'm giving you state wise examples in ethnic movements. Some states लिखो, देखो नागालैंड, put a dash. Nagaland, put a dash. Sovereignty, autonomy, sovereignty, autonomy, and peace negotiations. Sovereignty, autonomy, and peace negotiations. Next देखो Assam, migration, migration, language, citizenship, and indigenous rights. Indigenous rights. Next, right? Manipur, Manipur में right? Valley Hill Division, Valley Hill Division, competing territorial claims. Right? Mizoram and Star Mark Mizoram. It is one of the most celebrated examples. Okay. So लिखो मिजोरम में पुट लिखो डैश करके MNF, Mizo National Front, Mizo National Front, as an example of successful peace settlement, successful peaceful settlement. Successful peaceful settlement. Okay, by signing the 1986 Mizoram Accord. Almost 20 साल movement चला, 20 years. Successful peaceful settlement and institutional accommodation. Institutional accommodation Okay, acha. Lal Denga was the head of MNF for the whole movement, and when this settlement actually happened, he became the first CM. Ab settlements mein, if you see here, the issue is it's a 20-year long movement, or it takes a lot of time, dialogue, etc. But this is also a good example to tell that ऐसा नहीं है कि सारे ethnic movements have not led to any good outcome. This is one of the good outcomes coming out of it. Okay, so just remember this. I wanted to give this an example. Last लिखो Bodoland. Bodoland talks about autonomy and territorial representation. We are writing these examples. Let's say the question comes more specific on northeast movements, then we should have some points to talk about. Okay. Huh? Yes, there's a difference in the ethnic movements of south and northeast. Northeast ke movements are more having multiple identities. Southern movements may they are more of linguistic, Dravidian movement, etc. They are more linguistic and cultural in nature, right? Now, I think there was one question that had come specifically on northeast. पेज है हैंडआउट में कहीं पे कुछ बुलेट पॉइंट्स लिखना चाहोगे और टेक अ सेपरेट पेज एंड स्टेपल एक क्वेश्चन लिख लो राइट अ क्वेश्चन योर क्वेश्चन इज लिखो क्रिटिकली एग्जामिन एथनिक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स इन नॉर्थ ईस्ट इंडिया इस टॉपिक को इस क्वेश्चन से एंड करेंगे क्रिटिकली एग्जामिन एंड somebody else who is watching this online इस क्वेश्चन को अलग से लिख के स्टेपल कर देना है हैंडआउट में लास्ट में critically because if the question goes in more detail यहाँ पे I have to talk about everything including AFSPA various issues that have happened in northeast critically examine so through this question only we'll cover it critically examine the ethnic conflicts in northeast India इसको लिखो देखो the conflicts in northeast are complex the conflicts in northeast are complex and deep rooted phenomena they are complex and deep rooted phenomena देखो the rich diversity of northeast the rich diversity of northeast has also been a reason it has also been a reason for its tensions and conflicts tensions and conflicts इस पे लिखो आप लिखो reasons why this has happened क्यों देखो reasons only some bullets will write some points you already know पहला लिखेंगे first point is complex tribal form a linguistic and historical diversity complex tribal linguistic and historical diversity second you can write historical grievances historical grievances against British policies. Next, fear of assimilation. fear of assimilation. नेक्स्ट देखो इंटर एथनिक कंपटीशन, इंटर एथनिक कंपटीशन, ब्रैकेट में यू कैन राइट नागा कुकी या कुकी मैती कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, इंटर एथनिक कंपटीशन. नेक्स्ट lopsided development, lopsided development leading to feeling of relative deprivation. Next, human right concerns, due to allegations of misuse of AFSPA. Next, politicization of ethnicity, ब्रैकेट एस डी मुनी. देखो जो पॉइंट्स हम यहाँ लिख रहे हैं रीजंस, अगर आपने ये टेबल अच्छे से प्रिपेयर कर ली, easily points you can mention, but I'm just simplifying it in simple sense. अगर कोई deeper question आता है तो all the points that you want to write are covered from here itself. History, territory, migration, resources, identity, and according to scholars also we've written it. So we are just revisiting that part only. Okay. So politicization of, क्या लिखा आपने? Ethnicity, S D मुनी. इसको लिख लो एक लाइन करके. Political leaders often exploit ethnic tensions to gain or divert attention. To gain or divert attention. Gain or divert attention. ठीक है. Now depending if it's a 20 marker, you can include some more points. Basic idea मिल गया. What are the reasons why this happens? I am more concerned with the analysis of the issue. Okay. अब यहाँ पे some 3 or 4 extra points will write. Okay. So for example, government ने ये सारी चीजें कोशिश करी to ensure the things are done. Still there is a conflict going on. तो इसमें लिखो analysis, the critical examination. देखो संजीव बारुआ, we have seen संजीव बारुआ, right? संजीव बारुआ argues that AFSPA has alienated Northeast. AFSPA has alienated Northeast and reinforced, inverted commas में, otherness. It has reinforced otherness. Next लिखो उदयन मिश्रा, you, one second, UDAYAN, spelling I'll just write Professor जैसे ये देखो कि दिस होल व्यू वीडियो इज ऑन नॉर्थ ईस्ट एंड द चैलेंजेस ऑन 20-25 मिनट्स का. ठीक है. तो बेसिकली राइट प्रोफेसर उदयन मिश्रा emphasizes that ethnic conflicts have led to emergence of insurgent groups. Next देखो, despite PESA Act, FRA and sixth schedule, despite PESA Act, FRA and sixth schedule, there are wide implementation gaps. There are wide implementation gaps. Last देखो, according to Professor Sajal, SAJAL Nag, Sajal Nag, Professor Sajal Nag, insurgency and ethnic conflicts, insurgency and ethnic conflicts have serious implications for Indian politics. Serious implications for Indian politics and requires a comprehensive approach. अब इसको लिखो conclusion, last one line. देखो, in northeast, national unity has to be balanced with regional aspiration, comma, genuine inclusion and ensuring equitable development. Okay. आपने इस तरह से भी सुना होगा, प्राइम मिनिस्टर रेफरिंग टू नॉर्थ ईस्टर्न स्टेट एज अष्टलक्ष्मी. यहाँ पे यूज करो, जीएस में यूज करो, नॉर्थ ईस्ट एज द हार्ट ऑफ इंडियाज ग्रोथ स्टोरी. दीज थिंग्स यू कैन ऑल्सो यूज लेटर ऑन, यूज कर सकते हो. ओके. अगर टाइम मिले, दिस इज अ वेरी रीसेंट आर्टिकल, इसको पढ़ सकते हो, विल बी हेल्पफुल इन जीएस ऑल्सो. ठीक है, डेडिकेटेड. तो दिस इज ऑफ कोर्स मोर फ्रॉम अ जीएस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, but it will help you on answer here as well, right? You can see later, search it. 20 June 2026 का article है, Ashtalakshmi. Okay, इससे भी end. This is something you can use to end it. You can still get a question even in maybe India, Myanmar, to Act East and Northeast can also be linked. That is one aspect. ठीक है? Okay. This is where we'll end for today because the handout for that polity part is still pending at my end. So some modification is needed on that. उसको continue करेंगे आगे. ठीक है? So I'll be notifying you when that will happen. So we are now left, and most probably I'll try to club both social movements because we have done grassroots movements is not a big topic, and political parties, etc. So we may have a slightly longish class and we'll cover both these topics. ठीक है? वो अब next class में करेंगे हम लोग. So I'll notify you for that. Tomorrow most probably you don't have a class. ठीक है? आज Friday है, Saturday को I again have another class of another subject. So I will notify you when we meet next. ठीक है? इस बीच में whatever part is remaining revise करेंगे. टुडे यू विल गेट अ मैसेज फ्रॉम माय साइड फ्रॉम इन द ग्रुप, जिस जिसने भी टेस्ट लिख रखा है, या इन जनरल भी, इफ यू वांट टू स्पीक यू कैन शेड्यूल अ कॉल और डिस्कस विद मी. People who've already written the test today, tomorrow, day after, I'll be completing all the one-on-ones on the tests so that we can know the baseline, what is to be improved on. ठीक है, that is the idea. तो ठीक है, मिलते हैं अगली क्लास में फिर. यस, हाँ, वो मैं ग्रुप में डाल दूंगा फिर. ठीक है, तो जो जिसको जैसे यूज़ करना हो वैसे यूज़ कर सकता है उसको. ठीक है, ओके.